Can you hear me? You're on mute.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone. So there is supposed to be like a citywide moment of silence right now for COVID-19 deaths. The US reached 400,000 deaths today. So let's take like 2 minutes, and people are still coming in. And so we're scheduled to start at 6 p.m., but I think we can just take a minute right now and sit with that, and we'll start at like 6:02. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is our first regular meeting of 2021. If Sarah could do the roll call. Sarah, is that good?
Yes, let me pull up my minutes. I'd also noticed that we just got an updated student report. So here, let me get to my minutes. Sorry. Let's see. All right. I'm sorry. Can you just remind me of the time that you called the meeting to order?
6:02.
Okay. Okay. Roll call. Bowman.
Present.
Boyd.
Here.
Bugs.
Present.
Cresswell.
Present.
Hernandez. Not here. Troy. I
Here.
see. Okay. Myself, I'm here. Miss Martinsek.
Here.
MacArthur.
Here.
Menivar.
Present.
Dr. Powers.
Here.
Miss Zen. Is Rachel here?
It does look like she is here.
It does? Is that what you're saying?
I couldn't unmute, but I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do that.
Ms. Ma, Rachel Zen does appear in the participant list, so I don't know if she can hear us, but she is.
She can.
present
I
in
think
the
Troy has to
participant
make,
list.
Troy will make her a co-host and then she'll be able to unmute herself.
Good now. I'm
Okay,
good. Thank you.
she's good. All right, so we're dismissing Mr. Hernandez. If he does come, please let me know.
Okay. And
Madam Secretary, that we do have quorum,
Yes.
just to be on the record.
okay, so the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda for the evening. And I put a link to it in the chat so people can follow along from home and also access some of the links that are on there. Although I think we do have an updated student report that we're trying to get attached.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
I can second that motion.
Okay, second. So
Matt,
go ahead, Roberto.
I'm sorry. May I don't know if this is appropriate, but I would like to amend the agenda just to add a quick announcement about OMA. That is it. I promise it'll be a 2-minute announcement about the Open Meeting Act. So
Do you
if
wanna
that
do
would be appropriate.
Sure, where do you want to put it? New business?
Item 3.5, is it like pertinent to how we carry out things this evening, or is it more of a longer term thing?
It's more of a longer term thing.
Okay, yeah, let's stick it under number 7 then. And we have a lot of meeting-y stuff at the end there, like, so like under H, basically. Kind of
Okay.
stick it in there.
Okay,
Anyone
sounds,
have any discussion, debate on that? Motion to amend the agenda?
sounds good. If not, I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Ellen, do you want to redo
I
your?
second. Yeah, I can still second that. Sounds good.
Okay, I'll do a quick roll call for that. Bowman,
Yay.
Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez, still not present. Hillbrands,
Yes.
myself, yes. Martinsek,
Yes.
MacArthur,
Yes.
Menivar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
Thank you. That's 11 yeas. And the amended agenda was approved.
Okay, great. Okay, the next item is approval of the minutes. Sarah sent the draft minutes around, I think last week to the council. And does anyone have any corrections, additions, etc.? And I can't see all of you right now, so
I would say that any of like just the basic corrections, which were clerical, were made. But other than that, there was no like large changes.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, I'll second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. And Sarah, do you want to call the?
Yes. Bowman,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez, still not present. Hillbrands,
Yes.
Ma, yes. Martinsek,
Yes.
MacArthur,
Yes.
Menivar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
11 yeas for approval of the minutes from last week. Okay, January 12th.
I'm not sure who spoke yes when my name was called, but I didn't turn on my mic. But my vote is yes.
Thank you, Danaya.
Okay, so our next up is public participation. So we're really going to try to have public participation close to the beginning of meetings. You know, people often want to come and talk about something that's on the agenda, and so it's good to hear from people before we do our own discussion and debate on motions and vote. And so we are going to try to do a sign up with this form. I'm putting the link in the chat. This is experimental, so we'll see how it goes, but we don't want people to be lost in the chat if they are trying to speak and hoping to speak. And this also helps us gauge how many people are here to talk about what. And so we can kind of plan things a little better for the evening. I think, so let's give everyone a little minute here to try to fill that out. If you're clicking on that and you can't get to it and put your name in, you know, this is an experiment, so put your name in the chat in any way. And we really would like to see, especially like, do we have a lot of people here to talk about Eagle Day? And should we, in fact, do the Eagle Day discussion underneath new business, or, you know, so we kind of want to adjust here and see who's here to talk about what. And I see that Jose Hernandez has just joined. So if you want to do attendance for that.
Yep, 609. Got it.
Yeah, so are people generally, I'll just scroll through everyone's little images, and if you've like tried to sign up and it worked, you want to give a thumbs up. That's cool. This is really just for any of the participations. Comment from Mr. Slater. So yes, put your name in there, put the topic, and we'll try to get to kind of gauge here what's gonna work best. And yeah, so the thing is, both Dr. Powers and Denaya are going to speak probably in their reports a bit about Eagle Day. So those will be helpful information. I think I am inclined to say that we should have people talk about the old business stuff, especially the reopening during this first public participation. And then we can weigh in on Eagle Day, and I can open up during the Eagle Day discussion and have more participation then. There is going to be the delay of doing the community rep vacancy and filling that. So I don't know, LSC members, what do you think about that? What makes most sense? Is it better to do like a half hour for public first and cover the non-Eagle Day stuff as much as possible? And then if we have Eagle Day overflow, we'll open it up again after the principal and the student report. Yeah, so I think for future meetings, we'll be able to get this sign up link out sooner, and then we'll know ahead of time how much interest we have on what. And so I think that's going to be helpful for people and helpful for us organizing. So, okay.
Madam Chair, this is Roberto Mangiavar. May I be recognized?
Yep.
So my suggestion would be to have this public participation that we have right now. I don't know who is monitoring that form. So if one, can someone let me know who's monitoring the form and if we received any requests, and then allow that to happen. And then you do have an item number 8 on the agenda for public participation if needed. So I would say that if folks, if the public have additional questions or who have not spoken up at the earlier public participation, that would be the most appropriate time. Otherwise, we're going to have 3 public participations during this meeting. That is my suggestion.
Yeah, we have.
You know, Cassie, maybe we let Dr. Powers do his report while this form, you can sort through the form, just for time's sake.
Yeah, let's do that. It looks like it's kind of split between reopening and Eagle Day, so I think we'll be fine. Let's do Dr. Powers' report first. And I think Denaya's report too, actually, will make most sense. Then we'll do public participation, and then we'll hear from the PPLC. Unless Ellen would rather have the PPLC report before as well. So let's move on to the principal report.
Madam Chair, this is Roberto Mangiavar. I think you may have to amend the agenda then if you're going to move the public participation after item number 2 of the agenda.
Sure.
Or after, yeah. So moving public participation item number 4 after item number 5 reports.
That sounds great. We have a second?
Second.
Okay. And so then we're going to do, so we'll do roll call for that.
Yeah, let me do it real quick. Okay, Bowman. This is for amending the agenda to move public participation. Do I have a
Yay.
yay? Thank you. Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez. He's here, but he might be on mute. Hillbrands,
Yes.
myself, yes. Martinsek,
Yes.
MacArthur,
Yes.
Menivar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yay.
Zen. Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Miss Zen.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Powers, take it away.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, because it looks like we have a long agenda, I just want to touch on a few things, some of which may be answering questions that people might have already for public participation. First of all, under monthly reports, there are no changes from last week's reports in terms of attendance, discipline, or the on-track rate. We have some personnel updates. We will be welcoming in less than about 2 weeks' time a new testing coordinator. Her name is Nicole Guevara. She is presently at George Washington High School. She is replacing Elizabeth Edelman, who resigned in December. We have a temporary assigned teacher for Mrs. Laura Blackburn, who's in our law department. Her name is Christina Lasker. That's a typographical error. It is Lasker, and she's going to be teaching. She's an attorney and will be teaching the CTE pre-law program for Ms. Blackburn for the remainder of the school year. Captain Daniel Kovacs, who is on military leave for the past year, is returning on the 16th of next month to his regular teaching duties at Jones. We have 2 other leaves which are going to be pending for later in the semester and until the end of the school year, and we will be hiring 2 temporary assigned teachers for those 2 positions. Just briefly, the anti-racism professional development, utilizing the services of Davis Squared Consulting, begins tomorrow. We have our first session tomorrow afternoon with the faculty and staff. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to the next year of services from Davis Squared. And again, courtesy of the generous donation from Friends of Jones. I want to thank them as well. Our PPLC administrative team meeting that we had last week, I thought was extremely productive, came away very positive feeling about the level of communications between the administrative team and the PPLC, and a lot of positive things that I think we can move forward with, some understandings and some new steps forward. So I just wanted to mention that very briefly. Our Diverse Learners Cluster program, of course, reopened last week. And I know is a major topic of discussion. All the reopening issues are. I can say this, that thanks to our teachers, our SICAs, and other staff, we have 9 very enthusiastic young people who are at school and enjoying their time here. And so far, this has happened without any type of concerns or incidents. The Diverse Learners Cluster reopening, I've just mentioned that, sorry. I was looking at something else. The Eagle Day changes are probably, well, let me mention a couple other quick things and I want to come back to the Eagle Day changes. PSAT NMSQT is still scheduled for the 26th, that is next week. We are still in desperate need of proctors. So if there is anyone out there in the listening audience who is already cleared as a volunteer, a level 2 volunteer for CPS, we certainly could use your help on the morning of next Tuesday, the 26th. We are starting our senior planning. We've actually already planned a lot of it, but it's planned based on in-person attendance. And now we are developing our parallel plan, our plan B, so to speak, for our seniors. And we'll be starting on that before the end of this month and then communicating out to our seniors and their parents, not only what we have planned if we have in-person instruction, but what we have planned as our alternates, much as we did last spring. And then coming back to the Eagle Day changes, looking at the requirements from CPS of having 240 synchronous minutes of instruction each individual day rather than as an average over the school week. We developed 2 alternative plans that satisfied the 240 minutes of instructional time, and also at the same time provided a lot of the same benefits that we have had with the Eagle Day schedule that we've had previously, meaning that we will have the students being dismissed at 12:30 or 12:35, I think it's going to end up being, and they have the remainder of the day as asynchronous time. So it's not what we had before, but it is as close as we can make it to that. And we sent out a survey to students and to teachers and asked them to give their feedback between the 2 plans that we had. One of the plans involved what we would call a mini C day. The C day is when we meet all 8 classes. And this is a mini C day in the sense that instead of 60-minute classes, it's 30 minutes classes. So 8 periods, 30 minutes, it gives us the 240 minutes of synchronous instruction. And then again, dismissal at 12:35. The other plan called for an alternating plan where A-day classes met 1 week in a truncated fashion, and B-day classes met the other week on a truncated fashion. The strong majority for the faculty and teachers, and the majority for the students that we receive feedback from, was to go with the mini C-day, which means we will have 8 periods of 30 minutes each, ending at 12:35, and the students will be dismissed at that time. So that is the plan we have in place. I know there's been a great deal of discussion of people wanting to appeal this to the Board of Education, appeal it to the senior leadership of CPS. I can only tell you that I know what I know based on having been at several meetings to discuss this. Until there is an overall change in requirement by CPS for all high schools, that change is not going to take place. So we're making the most of the requirement that is there and that we were not fulfilling previously with our Eagle Day schedule. Now we have a plan that will at least approximate that and provide us with some of the benefits of the Eagle Day, if not all. So that really concludes everything I have to say with regard to my report. There are some upcoming events coming up. I mentioned the PSAT, all the way through some virtual homecoming events that kids have had planned after the new semester begins in February. So we're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Council members, do you have any questions?
I just have a really quick question, just super quick. For the anti-racist professional development that starts tomorrow, I guess, are the goals posted anywhere that maybe LSC members and the public could look at that? I think it would just be, I would just kind of like to take a look.
I think if you consult our website, we have a listing of things that we have been working toward with regard to our efforts to a greater sense of equity in the school. And that pretty well outlines the overall goals and the overall tactics or strategies that we're using toward those. As we get into our training here with regard to the first starting with these initial sessions here, we'll be able to share a little bit more in terms of an overall picture of what each session refers to. We're planning at this point through the end of the school year, and then of course there'll be another round of this in the fall for the first semester next year.
I guess maybe Rachel was looking more for like a document that described like the overall plan that Davis Squared had prepared for this school. Is there something along those lines?
We can try to provide something like that. Also, just a reminder that we'll be giving an overall update report at the next meeting in February, which will tell you more about not only this plan, but the other things that we have in play.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful for everyone to see, preparing for that meeting. Anyone else have any questions on this, on the principal's report? I have one little question related to the attendance. I think I saw some chatter online about people getting reports of chronic absenteeism. If there's a problem with the December data, could that be related to that? Like, is there like some?
It is related to it. CPS sends out automatic statements with regard to truancy. Sometimes if a student has been absent and we did not receive a confirmation from the parent, we don't jump on that. We try to follow up with the parents, but CPS automatically generates things like that. Anyone who has a concern about the communication they received just needs to refer back to our office, specifically to Mrs. Bernstein, who is our attendance secretary. We're working those out. We're getting each one of those corrected as we go.
That will give great comfort to some people who got notices recently.
It's shocking to receive something like that, but again, Mrs. Bernstein can straighten those out.
Excellent. Any other questions for Dr. Powers? I'm sure we'll revisit.
Madam Chair, this is Roberto Menjivar. I do have a few questions for Mr. Powers, for Dr. Powers, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Dr. Powers, just to follow up on Rachel's comment about the anti-racism, it seems like so you're starting today, so this is great, right? This is what the students and faculty have demanded, and I think it is a wonderful. It's great timing to start it now, right? To start it immediately. So for me, I would have appreciated if we can post. If they've provided some sort of agenda for tomorrow's event, and then long-term. So short-term, what is the event going to look like tomorrow for staff? And I think this would really be great if the school promoted it on the equity page. I think that would show that the school is taking this seriously, and we're moving forward. I know over the summer there's talk about just progress, monitoring, accountability. And I think this would really show the community that we're vested in this now and tomorrow and in the future. So I would encourage you, Dr. Powers, to post for you and your team to post something on that equity page, especially the agenda. And if I could get a copy of the agenda, I don't know if the other LSC members would want that. So this is great. I'm really excited about this. And I hope that our faculty and staff are excited and invested in this work, especially in today's age. The second thing I wanted to mention, so is that something that, so is that something that you could do, Dr. Powers?
We will work on that for you.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned FOJ. This was a generous grant to the school. And I just want to say, I truly appreciate the Friends of Jones for stepping up, right? This is what it means to be a part of a community. And I know, Dr. Powers, I think you were working through CPS and try to get this to be a vendor and try to maybe work something out. And that didn't, it sounded like that fell through. And then the Friends of Jones then stepped up. So I just want to make sure it's clear that this is a gift to the school. It's not a loan, and that the school, it really truly appreciates the Friends of Jones for paying for this incredible and important and critical work. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then attendance-wise, the final question for me is, I noticed that sometimes I've heard, especially with my child, that sometimes there's like an attendance bell, and the students might miss it, and then they get marked absent, and then they have to send an email. So is there some sort of mechanism that allows students to, if they miss that bell or whatever that trigger is, to mark them present, to extend at least, for a minute or so?
I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Menevar, but I will look into it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Powers.
Okay, no other questions on the principal's report? Trying to glance at all of you through multiple screens. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the student report. Denaya is going to so here's her preliminary report. She'll share a longer report in the chat if people want to bring that up. And I think take it away, Denaya.
Good evening, everyone. So I just dropped a new link in the chat that has one more item on it that I guess Dr. Powers and has just touched on with the attendance. But starting off, I want to talk about the loss of Eagle Days. Obviously, we all know that that's been a big issue since it was announced. And I wanted to share a document made by started by Adrian Zamudio, who's in the call right now. And it has 72 pages of stories from students. I just dropped it in the chat, talking about how the loss of Eagle Days would affect them. It ranges from like, I need to catch up on my work, to I have duties to my family that I cannot otherwise complete unless we have these Eagle Days. And I think that this document is important because the loss of Eagle Days isn't just, just another thing, right? Like I think that we have to come, to the realization that we're coming up on a year of being in a pandemic for high schoolers, right? And this is our first time virtual learning. This is our first time having to do all of this stuff, many things on our own at home. And like Dr. Powers said, this is obviously a CPS issue, but I'm hoping that with this document, I dropped the link. Okay, I think that was the wrong link. Sorry. I'll share the link for the 72 pages. But what I would be asking by sharing this document and by letting everyone see this is that I would like the administration to back up students in their effort to maybe boost things with CPS. And I don't want this to be an issue where we kind of just let it go because CPS said so. And I think that that's like a trend that, that tends to happen a lot whenever CPS says something. But this is a lot more than just another, protocol thing that we have to like bow down to, right? Like, this is like serious and like seriously affects students. That kind of segues into my next point about student mental health. I've gotten a lot of reports about lack of motivation and like people's grades dropping and just not really feeling it, right? Again, like we're going on 1 year being in remote learning, and with the loss of Eagle Days, this will get much worse, right? Like we had the day off where we could, catch up on homework without being at the screen, but now students not only have like the obligation to be at the screen, and like spend this, little amount of time, like just sitting there, like in front of their teachers, right, with no actual, yeah, Adrian just dropped it in the chat, like with really, not the normal standard of instruction going on. And I know that the administration or the counselor's corner shared resources right before winter break about like contacting your counselor and things like that. But I and like a lot of other students believe that those resources are not enough, right? Obviously people can go and they can talk to their counselors, right? But that is not like that's kind of a lot to, do, right? Like you have to make the email and then you have to get the meet and all of those things, right? And the reality is that not many students are going to go through that, but a lot of students are struggling with their mental health in the middle of a pandemic. So I wanted to ask the administration to kind of one, acknowledge this point, and two, try to brainstorm some ways in which we can introduce like mental health checks and like ways to de-stress into class time, into the normal days, right? I think these like many C days that are going to come up are like the perfect times to do this. But I think we need to realize that we have like a bunch of high schoolers who are like feeling like very low, right? Like not feeling it at all. And there's not much being done to help them, at least from, our point of view. And the last thing, like I said, which has already been touched on, a lot of students are reporting that they're getting a lot of tardies for not signing into ACLAB. And ACLAB comes about 15 minutes after our last period on a B day. And a lot of teachers don't really keep the ACLABs open for that long, obviously. So students get a lot of tardies about that. So I wanted to ask if the administration had any stats on attendance and like how many students are actually like coming to class, if that's dropped from like the in-person learning, and also ways to remedy this. I know there was a lot to drop on you, Dr. Powers, but if we could get some answers to that. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Caswell, if I may, I could respond to a couple of things real quickly. First of all, with regard
ahead.
to, I'm sorry. First of all, with regard to the tardies with ACLAB, I think that's part of the issue that we've had with the truancy letters that went out. I think there are some issues with regard to the checking in process, and we're trying to see if we can get that straightened out. I will follow up with Mrs. Bernstein tomorrow and see what we can determine can improve that so that we don't have a repeat of the problem. With regard to the other resources for our students, and again, I appreciate what the students have done in terms of their feedback with the loss of Eagle Day. One of the things that we have tried to do as part of the planning for the new schedule for Eagle Day, and I hate to say this, but we really don't have any choice. We do have to, by Board of Education policy, fulfill the 240 minutes. Now, those 240 minutes, however, are not going to be intended to be new instructional time. It's not going to be intended to be additional homework, giving tests and quizzes. grading work and so forth. Instead, it's going to be, and we've got suggestions for our teachers, and I think feedback from students to their teachers could be very valuable, with suggestions such as having discussion groups during that time, or lesson reviews, different social activities that could be done within the context of an Eagle or a Day class period. Any supplemental lessons that are fun lessons, for example, talking with the World Language Department, one of the things that was mentioned was being able to do some of the music activities that they often do, but have kind of not done all the time in the regular class periods. Social emotional programming, I think, can be valuable there. It adds that additional time every week when we actually have a Wednesday and an Eagle Day, and engaging the students in some way in which they can be participating in the planning. So our intent is to try to put into those synchronous minutes that are required some of the things that were part of the intent of the Eagle Day plan originally. Again, we're going to start this with the second semester. It's going to take a little while for it to develop, but it will develop. And I think we'll be able to make some very productive use of that time. But again, without additional burden on the students. And remembering that students do have basically their time free from 12:30 to the end of the school day.
Madam Chair, I'd like to be acknowledged, please.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question as it relates to social emotional learning. This is something that has come up a couple of times, and it's definitely something that is important for our students. I wanted to know, Dr. Powers and admin team, whether or not there is an action plan that addresses the social emotional needs for the students.
The best I can say on that is that the counseling department has developed things through the counselor's corner, which they indicate through there with communications, with their meetings with students at the various grade levels, the breakout sessions that they have with different groups and so forth, and are doing a really a tremendous job reaching out to students. That's really where most of the effort is going. Also through our Eagle Lab activities that we have had up to this point, and as we move forward, using some of the Eagle Day time. But as far as an action plan per se, these are things that are based on a number of different initiatives throughout the school.
Okay, so I asked that because I'm hearing that come up a couple of times as it relates to students, and I was wondering, well, I would like to suggest that that's something that admin picks up as a collaborative effort that includes student voice to specifically address, like, how can you carve out an actual plan? Because when you have a plan, then you know that it's addressing the needs, and by including students and teachers, then it helps with what you're hoping to do for the second semester, but you get to hear what the students' needs are. You get to leverage the resources that the counselors have and all of that input to address, because it's coming up because apparently the students need something. And I would recommend that they have, that it includes some type of tiered support, because I'm hearing Denia express that perhaps depending on the state, the students are not necessarily, they may not reach out to do the email and all of that. So I'm wondering if there might be a planned proactive approach to address that. And I agree, I think that the Eagle Days is a wonderful opportunity to have social emotional learning, an SEL time slot that is intentional and something that's built out to address the needs of the students. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buggs. And also, just to reiterate, and I appreciate your feedback, we have with our Eagle Lab time, we have pretty much on a weekly basis up to this particular point, we have been able to do some social emotional learning activities with the students, and we'll be able to utilize some of those same activities, possibly more frequently, utilizing our time during the new Eagle Lab schedule. So we do have a means to do it, and I can see the need for maybe a comprehensive statement about, what is being done with an example. or with examples and different resources. In addition, we have the new student voice initiatives that we're taking with regard to the new program referred to as alternatives. And Mr. Mitchell will be reporting more on that next month at our regular meeting.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. I just want to really underscore the student voice, because I think that if they have a part in it and they're able to see that, then if there's something they can say, oh, this is great. Have you guys considered this part, in a way to kind of gauge that? I know that we all know, given what has taken place, it's a toll on adults, but our young people, it's even more. And so I think that they're just really trying to reach out to say, hey, we're hurting. So I do appreciate the fact that there's something in the works and would like to see, a plan come together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Council members, do you have any more questions, especially for Denia, or comments on these topics she covered? Would the students like oh, sorry, are you raising your hand to ask?
Well, I just want to make sure that Denia feels comfortable that it's going to be communicated to all the students. Like, how will it be communicated to the students of the attendance? Like, is that something that will be done through the teachers, through their Google Classroom? And then she's not happy with the CPS's no as an answer. So are there any steps that we can take as a body to continue to fight for the students as a body?
So I don't have an answer on the attendance thing, but I'll weigh in for a second on the Eagle Day thing. I think there is some interest among parents organizing, and clearly the students are like getting super organized already. So I think we really should, as a school community, push higher than just the school level to make this happen. And I think this has been an issue at many other high schools around the city. And I think other high school communities would be very responsive as well, because they have also been told that they can't control their schedules, which is, just not a great policy during the pandemic, and the need for flexibility. So I would certainly, we can talk more about that during the Eagle Day item, but I think we should be pushing back. And it would be great if the administration could stand with us on that. And, we can try to reach out to other principals as well as other school communities.
Madam Chair, if
you go ahead.
Yes. So, and help back me up on this, Dr. Powers, but aren't there like set number of instructional minutes that you have to have as a requirement for the school to be in session, especially, like the same way they have a number of school days, there's a number of instructional minutes. I guess what I'm saying, Cassie and students, and I understand it, but there may be some things that may be required.
That's really the crux of the matter, is that CPS policy during this remote learning time, when we're teaching in this way, calls for 300 total minutes of instruction minimum each day, each school day. Where we made our mistake, where I made my mistake, was thinking of that in terms of a week. Our regular A and B scheduled days are more than 300 minutes each. And our Eagle Day schedule basically rounded that total up to like 1,500, or give or take 1,500 minutes a week. But it was pointed out, and correctly so, it is in policy that CPS requires that there be 300 minutes each day. And of those 300 minutes, 80% or 240 minutes have to be synchronous instruction, meaning the students have to be directly engaged and attendance taken. Now, we have flexibility of what we do with that time, but we do have to meet that 240 minutes unless CPS changes policy, and that's policy that would have to change across the entire school district for all high schools.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is that the state policy is that you need to have 5 clock hours of learning activities, but the state has a very flexible description of that, and then the state recommends that you have, I think, 2.5 hours of that be synchronous instruction for a full day, but that is just a recommendation from the state. So CPS is imposing a much stricter requirement than the state requires. And it's not like the board actually passed a policy to put this in place. So really, it's something that I think we can push back on the CPS administration on, because the state certainly allows this. And we, you know, if you start looking around at almost all the county, other high schools in Cook County have been remote the whole time. There's a small amount that have been hybrid, but most are remote, and many of them have very flexible days. I know Evanston Township High School has like essentially an Eagle Day on Mondays, and they have shorter days the other 4 days. So I think really it's an equity issue to say that CPS should be imposing this on schools in a way that other schools in the state are not being pushed like this. And so I think it's, you know, a good opportunity for us to say, like, we've done this experiment this year and it's worked for Jones, and, you know, everyone deserves to have this. Just because we flew under the radar for several months with this doesn't mean that it's not actually it's been a really successful policy for us. And the students, I think, certainly back that up.
I just want to read. I'm sorry.
This is Latrice. I would like to ask a question. So, Dr. Power, since you say that Jones has control over what happens during that time period, from what I am hearing from that is that this could be an opportunity during this shortened C-Day schedule for students to engage in the social emotional learning that Denia says that they are in need of. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that is correct. That would actually gives us a window of opportunity to use, and can be used in pretty much in any way we want to use it, as long as it is constructive, as long as it is designed to help our students and does not add to their academic burdens. It doesn't get them off the screens during that time, but it does lighten the load in the sense of we can do activities that will be able to be reinforcing what their needs are, whether it's academic or whether it's social emotional.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Rupert. May I be acknowledged?
Go ahead.
Dr. Powers, I commend you. I think that you and your team have come up with a creative way of addressing how to create this C Day for the students. Because my understanding is, as Councilmember MacArthur mentioned, it's that you're able to use this day, these 30-minute sessions, not for new instructional time, not for new homework. It could be for group discussions. It could be for study circle or study time or peer review. It can be used for students to maybe the counseling corners or the counselors can come in and pop into the class and help out and maybe address some of the social emotional issues. So I think this is, I understand the requirements and I understand the CPS requirements versus the Illinois State Board requirements. But I think this is, you are doing the best with this time while addressing those issues. For Member Ms. Boyd, 2 suggestions. I think it would be helpful if you if the students could write something in the Jones Blueprint and how this is affecting, how this is impacting them, right? Put it in the Jones Blueprint. I think that would get some press. And then the other thing is, if the students want to draft up a letter and then have the council review it and approve it and then send it on to our elected officials or elected city officials, I think that would be another way of approaching this. So I thank you so much, Member Boyd, for raising these real issues. And Dr. Powers, thank you so much for trying to come up with a creative solution to help our students. So
Denia, if no one else has anything, I'd like to give Denia sort of the last word in this section because it's her student report. And I had just had a question as well for you, Denia. Do you want, are the students happy to have that testimonial document added to our written minutes for the evening? I think that would be useful to have that on the record like that, if that is of interest to you and okay with them.
Yeah. So I wanted to reiterate again that I'm not asking the administration to change these days. Right? Obviously, I understand that that can't happen. I'm just asking for them to back us up in student, as we're trying to get CPS to like realize that this is actually not in students' best interest, we just want the administration's support, if not assistance. To answer Mrs. Cresswell's question, there are over like 100 students on the document, so I don't think I'd be able to contact each one of them individually, but the document, like the preface was that it will be shared with the administration or a higher body, and like those testimonials would be used to kind of help sway the decision to remove Eagle Days. So I don't think it would be an issue if it was added to public record. I think the students know that that was the intent.
Great. Okay, we will revisit this a little bit further down the agenda. I think we have a good list here for public participation. It doesn't look totally bananas. I think we should even be able to fit it in. We are somewhat flexible, but we would love for people to try to sum up their thoughts in 2 minutes if they can. And if they stretch to 3 minutes, we're not going to pull you off the stage with a cane, but we'll look sternly upon you. So please do try to sum up quickly.
Were we going to hear the with the amended agenda? Were we going to hear from the PPLC before we go?
I wasn't sure which actually what was the decision in the end. Did PPLC want to go first or after? Where did Ellen go? There's Ellen.
It doesn't matter to me what we decide. It's not going to be long at all. So I'd rather it, like, it's honestly okay either way.
Do you?
For my notes, I had it coming after the student report, if that, but.
Yeah, originally. Why don't you guys present it and then we'll get to our public participation. I think that's good.
Okay.
So then teachers who are speaking know what you guys have covered, so.
Okay, I'm gonna take the floor and our PPLC report. Tonight, I'm gonna be looking at another laptop to read it to you. So just so I don't feel so rude not looking at I'm working from multiple computers tonight. So as a PPLC, we met with the administrative team on Wednesday, January 13th to discuss the survey results shared with the LSC back in December, which looked at culture and climate at Jones. These survey results were also compared to the results from the same questions asked in 2018. The PPLC and administration looked for areas where Jones culture and climate has improved since 2018, as well as areas where growth is still much needed. We have sent notes from this meeting to the LSC, but we'll share a few observations in this meeting space. We observed improvements in the level of trust in colleagues to handle social emotional issues well, growth in communication from administration to teachers, for example, through the admin Q&As, and improved attempts and efforts to address large underlying issues within the school community. So these were all growths that we agreed upon between PPLC and admin. There is still need, however, to address several areas that the survey touched upon, including it seemed to be a clear disconnect between teachers' self-perception and perception of others. We believe we understand the circumstances better than our colleagues, that we individually figured, but that others still need to catch up. For example, regarding our understanding of white supremacy culture and how well we can handle student social emotional concerns. There is an increase in perceptions of racism and homophobia among staff, which brings up the question of how does this connect to how we will move forward in anti-racist PD. The comment sections of these surveys, there were many differences in tone between comments ranging from anger and frustration to optimism and support. Teachers are processing trauma very differently, and we have not acknowledged as a community that we are processing trauma both from the pandemic and what has happened this summer. There is some resentment and frustration, but also positivity for movement. There is a need for more acknowledgement and community space. In addition, the comments section of the survey also includes themes of fear of change and fear of expressing views openly, which leaves us again a question of how to build trust and a culture of growth from the administrative level down to the teacher level. Finally, from tallying conversations with teachers, the PPLC has found that a majority of Jones teachers oppose the current unsafe and inequitable CPS reopening plan. Several teachers have brought their thoughts and concerns to the LSC about reopening. And that is our summation and our report.
Thank you, Kim. And you have a couple links here. Can we add those documents to the record as well? Great, that is super helpful. Other council members, let me try to find you on my screen to see if anyone has questions for the PPLC, for Kim and Ellen.
Kim, there's a question of what does PPLC stand for?
Professional Personnel Leadership Committee. Is that right? Did I get hopefully a ding, ding, ding. Yes. There's also a PPC, which is essentially sort of where the union representation communicates with administration about problems. So that I think is Professional Problems Committee. So lots of acronyms. Okay, everyone seeming very quiet. I think we'll open up for public participation.
Sorry.
Oh, you want to go, Rachel? Go ahead.
There's a question in the chat about, I think the FOJ report. I think is that going to be
you're right. Sorry.
Public participation?
That's right. We didn't have a link, so I was like, depending on the highlight of the link. Yes, Jackie, would you like to give the report now? And is it you who will give it?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So hi, I am Jackie Papadopoulos. I'm the chair of Friends of Jones this year. I just want to give a really brief kind of summary of what it is that FOJ does, because I've been hearing from people that there's some confusion about what the different sort of entities at the school. So FOJ is Friends of Jones is the fundraising body for the school. We operate separately and independently, and we essentially reach every student, club, department, organization within the school. As Roberto mentioned, we do not give loans. We just give money. So no strings attached. Anybody, there are very few parameters, but anybody that really wants to apply for a grant applies for a grant. They let us know what it is. They give us a little bit of background about it. We discuss it at board meetings, and then we vote on it, typically to approve. There are very few grants that we have further questions about, because people are just really clear that, the grant funding, what it's going towards, and it's usually a pretty clear indication that it's going to benefit a large number of students at the school one way or another. As Dr. Powers mentioned, FOJ did fund the $65,000 necessary for the racism and diversity training that is ongoing over the next year. We have also paid quite a bit of money for teachers to have the software necessary to conduct more effective remote learning. We've done, numerous technology grants. We are getting some grants from student organizations that are able to do things right now, even during remote learning, including, we paid for judges for the debate team. We've paid for some technology for Girls Who Code. So we, are just moving forward. We continue to raise funds through our annual fund. And, obviously it's a little bit challenging this year. People are experiencing a lot of different things, but, we are beyond looking at this year, really trying to focus on, obviously we want to support whatever we can this year, but we're also looking to next year. So we don't want to have no money when next year rolls around, and hopefully things will look and feel a lot like they used to before March 17th. Of last year. We are right now planning our spring benefit, which is going to be virtual this year, and that is on March 19th. We have this year developed the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, in part to respond to what was happening, obviously, like, everybody else was dealing with what was happening over the summer months. And because of that, from that, we have the Parents' Voice Committee. We are doing a book discussion that is being hosted and led by Mr. Feely. So we're really happy about that. That is on February 4th. we are starting to address some of the issues that have been coming to my attention, just in terms of, people who work aren't necessarily able to make an 8 a.m. meeting on a Thursday morning, which is when our meetings are. So we'll be doing some surveying of the parents in the community to, initially find out what's, an ideal time, recognizing we're not going to come up with the perfect time where we can reach everybody. But also find out what barriers are, community members are experiencing to attending our board meetings or participating or volunteering in the school. We have a robust alumni program where we continue to reach out to alumni and keep them engaged in the school environment. We are also working on just a couple of housekeeping things, just in terms of, continuing to make things as transparent and easily accessible as possible. So we're getting our minutes up on the website and working on things like that. And as Dr. Power said, we are actively recruiting for people to volunteer to serve as proctors on the 26th. So if Dr. Power's plea wasn't swaying, perhaps mine will lead you to email Miss Bernstein. So I'm doing what I can to make that happen. So that's basically the report for what we're doing at this time.
Thank you, Jackie. And I think this is another, to have a FOJ report at LSC is another time that works generally for the community. So it's another venue to share info. So we are super happy that you could make it. Do people on the council have some questions?
I'm sorry, could I add something with regard to FOJ? It's not big right now because we're not in school in person, but FOJ runs a wonderful volunteer effort for things like chaperones for events, for field trips. I know Ms. MacArthur has served as one of our library volunteers, which enables us to keep the library open before and after school. So that's a tremendous thing that they have been doing. And I want to take my hat off, figuratively anyway, because that makes a huge difference for our school and operations. And now, even though we're remote, volunteers helping us with the proctoring for the PSAT and for future exams we might have.
One of our focuses this year has, obviously starting last year when we realized that this was going to be an issue, was how to maintain parental connection to the school community and, to FOJ, and make sure that we didn't become this, obsolete organization that, didn't have an impact on the school. So we're most thrilled to be able to really support the initiatives of the students and the teachers who, continue to work really hard at navigating during this. And so we feel thrilled every time we get a grant in. We're like excited to to go over it and see what all the teachers are able to do, and we kind of miss getting the grants from the students, so hopefully we'll be getting more in at some point.
Thanks. Any other questions? If I scan through here. Okay, I think I'm seeing none. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay,
Madam Chair, this is Roberto Major. May I be acknowledged? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, so hi Jackie. So just full disclosure, both our daughters are on the varsity girls cross country team. So it's good to see you, Ms. Papadopoulos.
My sophomore daughter is on the cross country team. So yes.
So I do have, I guess, a couple questions or just suggestions. So last year, and Ms. Boyd can chime in, and I don't remember when last year, but a couple of student organizations showed up or attended, I should say, the Jones Local School Council meeting. And they had asked, they had asked the council about like, what was the process for getting a good grant or applying for a grant through the Friends of Jones. And there wasn't a real clear answer. It seemed like there might be some confusion about how to apply for a grant. And then I quickly glanced at the Friends of Jones website earlier this week or last week, and I can't seem to see, I wasn't able to find a link to the grant application and instructions on how to apply for a grant and what that process looks like. So it would be helpful, I think. You mentioned one of the things about being transparent and making these funds available to all of the student organizations or the teachers at Jones College Prep. So is there a process or a link on the Friends of Jones that would explain what that application looks like?
Sure. So I actually have that in my notes. So a part of our DEI committee, which is headed by Latrice MacArthur, was, so let me address a couple of things. Every teacher should have ready access to the FOJ grant. So every student organization should, their faculty advisor should be able to give them this information. However, because we recognize that this might not be something that students even know is an option for them, we really wanted to make sure that every student was aware that this money is available for you. And, as long as it's appropriate and sort of falls within our pretty loose, we're happy to pay for a lot of things. So recognizing that was probably an issue, we originally started out thinking that during the club days, we would have representatives from FOJ going up to every single table, introducing ourselves, putting that like personal spin on it and saying, hey, we're here, we're not scary, you can ask for $50, you can ask for $500. Like, it just depends on what your need is. Because obviously that didn't happen, Latrice has emailed, I believe, almost every single club with a grant application explaining what FOJ is saying, hey, these funds are here for you. And it's something that we continue to work on. We are going to, we've simplified our grant application form this year, making sure that we addressed a couple of issues that came up unexpectedly last year because of the pandemic. So that has been dealt with. And so we are also just going to be making a very simple kind of outline for how it is that you apply for a grant. I mean, it's so simple to apply for a grant, particularly if you're a student club or organization where you're not having to provide like a lot of documentation or receipts or things like that. And so I think the reason why that didn't exist already is because the grant application form is very self-explanatory. So that we've already been talking to the person who's in charge of our website. That should be updated probably before our next meeting in February. It's simple enough. So I do think that, having that on there and making sure that everybody knows is really important. But I know I've received emails from students after they received Latrice's email, like, hey, I'm, interested in getting a grant. My daughter has had people say, hey, I want a grant. Can your mom hook me up? So they may have been disappointed that the answer was not yes. But I mean, my daughter heads a club, and so she got a grant from Latrice, or an email from Latrice. And so I know that the process is working because we're getting more inquiries about it. So thank you for the question, but it is something that we're aware of and is really something that should be fixed within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for that. And as you might remember, last year, I think the girls cross country team was scrambling to try to get a banquet or some sort of celebration. And then just a handful of parents came together to put that together. And we're kind of trying to navigate the Friends of Jones grant. And then this year was the same. So
banquets actually are not something that we typically fund. And I say typically because we are potentially operating a little bit differently. Well, we voted to operate a little bit differently this year during the pandemic, just because students have more of a need, I think, in some respects, to be able to socialize, obviously, in appropriate ways. Banquets, because Jones used to have these rather large sports banquets, and that they funded, and then it just became too large. And so, and Dr. Powers, you can chime in with this, but then it just became like, it was just an award ceremony, and every club was responsible for their own you know, like with the boys cross country team, it's like a potluck, and I think with the girls cross country team, we wound up just paying, you know, a flat amount per family. So.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt, Jackie. Maybe Roberto can ask you some questions over email, and we can like
happy to do
sort
that.
this out in detail. And yeah, so I think we should move on to our public participation because our business agenda is super long. But thank you so much for coming, and you know, for all of the reports tonight. Our goal each month is actually going to be to get these reports into the hands of the council members ahead of time, and so that, you know, we can have these little back and forth discussions. And so I think we will be pushing towards that, and we'll make it very efficient. So I think on the speaker sign up, we have a couple people who signed up who are here to be to speak as community rep vacancy candidates. We will save you till that item agenda, so don't worry about, we won't call on you if you're just here for that. But we will go through the other speakers. I think I saw that Jacqueline Smith left. And so maybe we could just write her comment that she put in the chat that she wanted to share as a written comment for her. So the first person here is Monica Lasky. Monica, are you there? And can we unmute her? And I think we're going to be pretty strict on the 2 minutes so that we can all hear everyone and hear all the other stuff on the agenda. Monica, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Great, go ahead.
Thank you. I think there are some other parents also here who plan to speak about Eagle Days, so I don't want to steal their thunder. I wanted to say thank you to the students who came and participated on that topic so eloquently and so forcefully. At the last LSC meeting, I raised the mental health point, and I just want to say to the students, I hear you. I think many of us hear you. You are heard, you are seen. We know how your parents and your Jones community know how burdensome this has been. And I want to say also to the teachers, I saw Ms. Miller's comments, and I know she's not alone, that the Eagle Days have been an important respite for the teachers as well. And I know that the mental and emotional challenges of teaching in this way are stressful. So I want to say to the teachers that the parents hear you on that. And then Dowers pretty much stole my thunder, so to speak, by basically sharing that the administration was already planning that the new Wednesday configuration would be as least burdensome to students as possible. But I guess I just want to reiterate again to make sure that I heard this correctly, that there would be no additional academic burden on Wednesday, which means no participation, no grading, no homework due on Wednesday, no homework assigned on Wednesday, no tests, no quizzes, no new content introduced. I want to make sure I heard that right. And I also want to make sure that that there are plans to communicate that to the parent body, the student body, and the faculty. And then I just want to applaud all the great ideas I heard of how that time could be used. I saw many comments in the chats about the needs for kids to act socially. I think that's so important and desperately missing. So thank you, Assistant Principal Faye, on that, and everyone who's working on that.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right, thank you. I think I'm done. So thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Monica. Let me see here. I lost my sign up. Sorry, do you have the thing to see who's next? Oh, my document.
Yes. Peter sent me he was next. He sent me his Google Doc link, which I'll share with the whole council. It's about reopening. And our next speaker is Sarah Schachter.
I think she said in the chat that she was.
Yeah, I don't need to speak. My questions were answered. But hi, Monica. It's Sarah from high school.
All right. Our next speaker. Thank you, Sarah. Jacqueline Smith also had to leave. She put her her comment in the chat. I was able to copy that. Our next speaker would be Adrian Zamudio. Also Eagle Day.
1 second. Let me, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Everyone can see me? We're good? So hi everyone, I'm a senior here. And basically everyone had seen my document, or if you haven't, please scroll up in the chat, or if someone can paste it in the chat. So I was the one who created that 74-page document where we had student testimonials about how important Eagle Days were for them. And I think that was just one of the like only things that we have for documentation of that like point. But I think the amount of like people who had done it really just emphasizes that point of like how important it is and the significance we have, or that it has. And the reason why I came today was on the behalf of Denai inviting me, so thank you, Denai, as well. But what I came here to say was actually like kind of like brought up by Mr. Powers, Dr. Powers, sorry. And what he had said was that teachers were not going to be doing new instructional periods during this new Wednesday, which is what we are first like against. But if there is like obviously like no way to work around it, like this can be like a fine substitute. But like other things in the past, I don't think that it should stop here, because a lot of students are going to become dissatisfied. And with what we've been saying, this is a very unique situation, something that CPS can obviously abide if they would like to. And with anecdotes that Monica brought up earlier, saying that Naperville actually does have 1 day of asynchronous time. I think that CPS can figure out how to, make 1 day of asynchronous time, especially with everyone saying again, like we have a lack of attention for mental health. I think Eagle Day has been one of those things, and you can check the docs and you can control F and check mental health or health in there, and it's going to have hundreds of mentions. So I think this is something that we need to be fighting for. And I appreciate what everyone has done in here. If you have made some sort of contribution to this movement, or what I like to call movement, but I do think, and I think a lot of adults have realized this, is that we can definitely be pushing for more. And that's basically it. I think another thing that I do want to mention before I get cut off is that we would like to see some sort of like written legislation or some things, so students can know that teachers will not be testing them, because with some things in the past, we know teachers don't follow the rules, and that's not to call anyone out, but that's to make sure that students feel secure with the situation that we're put in.
Time. Thank you. I'll take note of that.
Thanks, Adrian. I think Peter has left. So it's Anthony Capetta. Anthony, I'm gonna go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Am I unmuted now? Can you guys hear? Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Anthony Capetta, math teacher, Math 2 and Stats. I just wanted to quickly add a contribution to why I think the current plan is not as safe and as thought out as it could be. And I urge the LSC members to vote yes to send a letter to CPS and the Alder people, specifically our Alder person. So just a couple of quick things. First, I think none of the teachers think remote learning is perfect, and we would all love to be back in person at some point. I don't think I've worked harder in my 15 years than I have this year. I think that's the same for every other teacher. But some of the concerns about the current plan, one, in the first wave of teachers that have gone back, 70% of people who asked for accommodations to stay at home were denied. And this impacts me personally because I have a partner with cancer. And under what we've seen from CPS is that people who live with someone who have a severe health issue are not being allowed accommodations or being forced to return. So that's the first thing. Second, CPS just won't negotiate on what things will actually look like. So for instance, everyone is talking about this need for Eagle Day and Asynchronous Day. We've been asking the board since August for 1 hour of asynchronous day, both for students' mental health, for teachers' mental health, but also to deal with social emotion issues. We put forward a plan to do voluntary home visits, that staff that would be able to go visit students at the home and stand outside and talk to them and counsel them. And CPS was unwilling to negotiate on that. And then lastly, there's just some things that we're asking for the board to agree on. Simply, we want some health metrics that are agreed on when it's safe, not arbitrary dates. So what are health metrics used to reopen? We want constant monitoring of the ventilation systems. People talked about our north building not having windows and being old and things like that. And I saw the last thing. And just an ongoing safety checks. There hasn't been CPS's commitment. And so those are things that we're asking for to negotiate. And I really would urge the body to consider those in the letter and when they vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, so we'll have the reopening discussion a little bit later. And
It's Cynthia Lalagin said she's just here supporting the Jones reopening letter. I don't know if she wants to make an official comment.
Do you want to speak, Cynthia? I hate searching through here. This is a nightmare.
And then after, is she here? After that, there's just talking about the open spots, and then our next non-community rep person would be Mr. Slater.
I don't see Cindy here.
Okay.
All right. I didn't know I was going to speak now, but I'll go ahead and speak now because it's getting late and I might have to run. So, everybody talks about transparency. I would recommend that this LSC demand that the negotiations between the union and CPS be live streamed, because every time after a negotiation, CTU comes out, tells one story, the mayor and CPS comes out and tells a different story. Why not demand that they live stream so we can see the real truth? Now, enough of all of this stuff that this minutia. Demand that they live stream. We have the technology. Let's do it. Come on, LSC. Let's tell them to be transparent. The mayor says she wants to be transparent. Let's hold her to her commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. I think you'll be happy to know that the LSC is going to start live streaming on YouTube, hopefully. So.
Okay, and I think Julie Dorgan, do you still want to speak? Julie, are you? I'm not sure if she sent a message about that. Let's see, is she still on? I think Julie has left. She was going to speak on Eagle Day as well. I think she's been working with Monica. I think she was just going to reiterate points that were made earlier on that. And we also have community candidate that we'll cover later. And then Shirley Rodas, Yamali, right? Let's see, is she? Where is Oops. Hi, Shirley, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Yamali. I'm the Jones software president, and I want to talk about the social emotional learning. I know that Dr. Powers mentioned that there's like a structured thing where like an ACT lab, the teachers talk about different stuff. But in my opinion, I feel like this is like kind of a Band-Aid repair, and they don't really talk about like real issues that we're dealing with. Like lately they've been talking about imposter syndrome. I know that that is important, but there's like I guess other priorities, and I don't know, maybe we could talk about like the effects of the pandemic, because most of the stuff that they talk about is sugar coated or vaguely described. And during these times there's been a lot of like, you know, since COVID, a lot of students have lost loved ones. I personally lost my sister, and I think maybe like bringing in professionals during ACT Lab to have workshops, or creating like support groups so students cannot like, so they could talk to other students so they don't feel alone. I feel like that personally would help me a lot. I am talking to my counselor, and I have like the privilege to be a self advocate for myself, and I know what I need, but other students do not have that luxury. What else? Yeah, and I have a good support system, and I'm not saying like not a lot of students have that. So I feel like having some sort of I don't know, professional come in and talk, oh, like this is normal because of like pandemic, you know, feeling this and this and that, or like students coming together talking about all this together. I think we should have something more, I guess, permanent, since you know the pandemic is not really leaving anytime soon. And the last thing I wanted to add was like the Wednesdays. We should really push to have those off, because I know personally that helps me a lot. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak.
Thank you so much for speaking, and I am so sorry to hear about your loss. And yeah, I know the whole school community is. So yeah, I think this really just emphasizes our definite need to put this mental health stuff on our agenda. Thank you again. Julie, I think is back. Julie, do you want to do your speaking about Eagle Day? If you're here, you can. If you are not, we will move into our next item.
Okay, I will. I'll say a few words. I was gonna put something in the chat, but I'm back. Oh, my video is not working for some reason. But anyway, I will just say that I wanted the students to know that parents support them in wanting to fight for Eagle Days, as they have been throughout the year, and not the modified version. I think that we can push CPS, and we can try and make this a citywide policy, because Jones should not be the only place that is benefiting from something that so clearly is really critical to students. And so we appreciate that the administration at Jones is trying to make the best of the situation, but are hoping that we can do better, and that parents will stand with students. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We also have Barb Balagaris. Barb, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, and I'm sorry, my camera is not working at the moment, but I did just want to say how impressed I am with the students' organization. Adrian's testimonial document that he put together is really powerful. And I think it just really brings to light what these kids are going through, especially as it relates to their mental health. I'm experiencing it firsthand. A lot of my friends that I've spoken with, their kids are also really feeling anxious, exaggerated OCD behaviors, and depression and eating disorders. And we're hearing lots of this kind of talk that is very, very concerning. I have spoken with other parents from other schools too that are doing similar things like this within CPS, and has probably just flown under the radar like we were originally able to. And I just, I know that CPS has these rules put in place for a very good reason, which I appreciate. But I also think the rules were written outside of a time of pandemic, and maybe need to be adapted for what we're immediately going through, not for long term, but for the short term of what we're going through right now. So I do think it's important that maybe we take this to the next step. And I just congratulate our teachers and our administration, because I do think they've done a really great job of what they've put together so far. But I think it's important that we see a continuation of kind of where we've been. Dr. Powers, I'm really happy to hear what your plans are for trying to adapt to what we need to do. But we'd like to help you be able to continue what you did create, because I do think it was a good thing for the students and obviously what we're hearing today too, the teachers as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Barb. Okay, we will conclude this section of public participation. You can put your name in. We'll see if you can sustain till the end and have another topic to cover. We'll add you in then, but we will move on to our old business now. The next item is the approving bylaws, and Sarah shared the revised bylaw draft that she put together. And I think there are a few comments on it from LSC members, and the link is there on the public agenda for people to look at. And
yeah, if you want, I could just read through people's concerns and we can.
I think that's good.
Address that. If people really wanted to see this, I could put it in the chat. It is public. So if you want to follow along at home, it's in the chat. I'm going to go to my first comment, which is on page 5. And it was from Mr. Menjivar. Potentially have best practices to have 2 public comments, one at the beginning, one at the end. Should we consider limiting to 5 to 10? And then creating the form, which I think is something that we can do. We don't have to put that in the bylaws. And then to Kim's point, our agendas have always said that we've done 2 minutes and this says 3 minutes. I'm not sure the bylaws need to state specifically that we're going to have a public participation in the beginning and the end. I think as a body, we can decide to do that. I think having the collection form is great. And I think when Dr. Powers sends the announcement for our meetings, we can include that, the agenda and the form all right there. So it's one-stop shopping. And then I'm amenable to changing that to 2 minutes. I think that when there's a lot going on, we'll have more people commenting. I'd rather put 2 minutes and have more people comment than have it stay at 3 minutes and then limit. I don't really want to limit I don't want to put in the bylaws that we're saying we're only going to allow 5 to 10 comments. I just don't think that's great for an elected body, but I would consider putting it to 2 minutes because people tend to go over sometimes anyway. Any comments?
Can I just say really quickly, I agree, like we want to keep things like moving, but I just, I know that it can be kind of jarring to be cut off. And so if we can like give people like 15-second, leeway on either side, and I don't know, the timer, I'm just like watching it and it just kind of stresses me out. But I know like we also have to keep things moving. So that's my comment.
I would say that I think the model bylaws, I'm not sure if the model bylaws actually specify the particular time that you have to give to people. I think as a body, we can draft a little policy that we put as a blurb on our public agenda to say that like we encourage you to speak no more than 2 minutes, but we'll give you a little leeway or whatever. I don't think it really needs to be something, to be honest, that's actually in the bylaws that we have to then vote a 2/3 majority to amend.
Yeah, I'd be happy to just take that sentence out.
Yeah, I would prefer that, if anything.
Roberto, are you okay with leaving the language without saying?
I'm sorry. So what is the suggestion? Because there might be an OMA violation.
For what?
So I saw that you took out up to 2 minutes. Is that correct? Are you suggesting that we should not put a time limit at all?
I'm just saying I don't think it needs to be in the bylaws. It's something that can be managed, like Cassie said, in the agenda specifically.
So according to the Illinois Attorney General's Opens Meeting Act, if you do not put any sort of time limit, right, then you are indefinitely inviting the public to speak as long as they want, and it could take the entire day. So we should absolutely include a time limit, as well as how much time we're going to allot people to speak. So it would be, for example, each speaker will be permitted to speak in order for up to 3 minutes, and for a total of 15 minutes. Otherwise, if we cut them off and there's no indication about how much time we're allowing the public to participate, we are in direct violation of the OMA. I am beginning to take the OMA training through the Illinois Attorney General's office. And so I'm a quarter way done, and that is something that is clear. So we have to be careful. So we have to be clear to the public how much time we're allowing each participant and how much time we're allowing for the public participation.
So why don't we say 2 minutes? Because if people go over, we're okay with that. And then for a total of, I hate to say it really, I mean, if we say 30 minutes and we exceed it, then that's our prerogative at that time. Cassie's disagreeing with you. I see her face.
I don't think, so you need to maybe say this on your agenda and let people know what the policy is, but that does not mean it should be in your bylaws, I don't think. So I think we can leave it out. And if CPS Legal flags it as like an issue, that's a problem, but I don't think we should have a policy on this, and then we should make it clear to the public when they attend what the policy is. But I don't think it needs to actually be in the bylaws as like something that we always have, because I think there are some cases, like in general, I don't think we're going to get like 80 speakers. And so if we have meetings or we have a ton of speakers and we want to, you know, adjourn and continue the next day so that we can really cover public participation, we'll do that. But I think we need to be flexible, and it doesn't, putting something in the bylaws makes it more firm than we need it to be. So I would just prefer to leave it out, and then we can specify it ourselves in our agendas.
So, Madam Chair, I would have to disagree. The law is very clear that if you do not put a time limit and you have 50 people that show up, and let's say 10 people, you cut off at the 10th person, you have violated the OMA by not allowing the additional 40 people to speak. So we have to put it in the record, the bylaws, that we're allowing a certain number of minutes per speaker and the total number of minutes for public speaking. Now we can finesse the language saying that the Madam Chair has the authority to extend if we believe we have a number of participants arriving or planning to speak.
Okay, so I could change it to say that each speaker will be permitted to speak in the order in which they signed up and may speak for up to 2 minutes, unless previously arranged, for a maximum of 30 minutes, which can be extended at the discretion of the chair.
Yeah,
we can, you know what, we could also table this and just go talk and talk to legal.
I just think like the model bylaws from CPS do not say that. This is like all they say is just this little blurb is actually what they have for public participation in that section. So I don't think we have to be quite that specific. And I think we could leave it unspecified for now, send it to them, and then amend if they say that we need to amend. And for the moment, I think we will be okay with putting it on the next agenda as our description of what public participation is. Because so there's a difference between saying, you need to be clear on what it is and saying that it needs to legally be in your bylaws as an LSC. So, I mean,
so under pursuant to the Opens Meeting, Madam Chair, pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, it says public comment is permitted under the rules of established and recorded, and that is defined under our bylaws.
Yeah, so if we put it in there, but if we don't put it in there, then we can make establish it in another way. I think that must be, yeah. So I would rather leave this out for now and specify it more in the future if we have problems and if we check and see that people are there's an OMA issue.
Jose.
Jose.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something.
Yes, actually, yes. Julissa Cruz just typed in a message. She's a facilitator. She can, if we can allow her to explain to us what the requirements are for the bylaws.
Yep, that would be great. Julissa, are you on here?
Are you available?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Hello?
sorry if there's a lot of background noise. I have young children, so I apologize. Just want to make sure that, okay, you can see me. Hi, everyone. My name is Julissa Cruz. I'm with LSC Relations. And so essentially, the LSC dictates the parameters around what public participation is. So you can say there's time limits, you can say people have to sign up in advance, or we'll limit the number of speakers. It doesn't necessarily have to be in your bylaws. This can be something that you motion on. Some councils take it meeting by meeting. Some councils will put it in their bylaws, but then that's a little bit more stringent. It's giving you more structure, but then you have to abide by that every meeting moving forward. So you all will decide what public participation looks like to you, what the best fit is for you, whether that's time limit, speaker limit, one, the other, or both. But it doesn't necessarily need to be in your bylaws. The OMA states that you have to have public participation at every meeting, but the rules around what that looks like is up to you. So that's I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to vouch for one or the other, bylaws or not, because that's really your decision. You decide what's going to be best. Do you want to have a 2-minute rule, and if there's a day there's not many speakers, and so you'll extend that by 15 seconds or 20 seconds, and that's fine. If you want to have a steadfast rule of 2 minutes and include in your bylaw, so that's what it is, whether you have one speaker or 10, then that's also fine. But that's really up for you guys to decide.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Okay, why don't we go through the other comments and see what other things there's points of contention on, and we'll come back to this at the end as we figure out what the final
I'm
form
going to
is.
skip to page 12, and that was Latrice's comment. X, it says approve internal account expenditures and transfers over $2,500. That is the standard amount. I know that Jones had a previous LLC had increased that to 10,000. And Latrice's comment is that it should be a dollar amount that takes into consideration the size of the school. And Cassie, I don't know if you have a comment on 2,500 versus 10,000.
I would prefer to say 2,500, and like with the other part, we can amend things later if we think it is burdensome and we're spending too much time on things. But I think the transparency is helpful right now. And I know the information we've gotten so far from the last 3 months, there was only one item over $2,500. So I think that is the standard default for CPS high schools. And I think that is an information that makes sure that the public and the school community hears about what spending is happening, and I'd like to keep it that way. And we can revisit actually any of this if we decide that it is impeding how we're operating. But I think kind of going for some of these defaults or a little bit underspecified in general is better.
So my objection to that is that the school is closed, and so of course the expenditures are lower now. I remember in previous years that there was a light bulb expense or computer expenses, and I don't necessarily feel like if it goes over $2,500 that the admin will have to come to us, because then it will slow down providing products and services to the students.
I just have a comment on that. I mean, in my history at an elementary level, it's 1,000. And what would happen is the principal would just, or, the clerk would put together a quick spreadsheet. Most of it, you're right, is in and out money. So put together, we'd look at it and we just approve it. And it just keeps your eye on where the money is going. I think, Latrice, if we could just keep it at 2,500 for at least for this term until July, and then revisit that once we get the budget committee established, I would appreciate that. I'm not against going to the 10,000. I agree. I don't want light bulbs to not get replaced because they're waiting for us to pay the vendor.
Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized.
Go ahead, is it Elaine?
I'm wondering, perhaps a compromise of $5,000. You can consider that.
I do wonder how, like, what do other large schools similar to Jones's size, does anyone, I don't actually have any idea what their like base value is.
Well, I mean, 2,500 is the default for high schools. I think something that's going to take care of the complexity on this is that we're going to have a budget committee. And so these reports will be generated by the budget committee. We'll get them ahead of time and we'll get to see them. And this is really more about transparency than spending a lot of time in each meeting. I think also these approvals, you know, if it becomes a problem and it's hurting spending flexibility, then we can talk about it again, but it really is just the default amount. And so one thing on these like smaller contentious things, do we have to pass, can we only do a single motion to pass the entire bylaws as this? Or should we, like, could we vote to pass the whole bylaw and then have people make individual motions for these particular contentious items so we can take the specific vote on those sections after we
guess
vote on the whole or something?
We only have this and then one comment about the name of a committee. So in the interest of finishing something, I guess if Dr. Powers would like to chime in on the 2,500, that could help us make that decision to move forward. And then if we could just quickly discuss the committees. Is that okay, Cassie?
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Powers, if you have a comment on this, that'd be great.
I would like to speak on that issue because some of these dollar amounts were set many, many, many years ago. So the $2,500 seemed like a heck of a lot of money 10, 15, 20 years ago. In terms of school expenses, it isn't anymore. We're operating with a budget of over 12 million. Most of that, of course, is encumbered for faculty and staff, benefits and salary and so forth. The reason we went to the 10,000 amount during the last LSC, and that was initiated by the LSC membership, was because of the delays often we experience with regard to making purchases or issuing checks. We had to wait until the next LSC meeting. And $2,500 could be half a set of textbooks for one classroom, basically. I mean, we're talking about, yes, it's a lot of money out of one's pocket, but not out of a $12 million plus budget. And that not including the internal accounts and so forth. That's why it was done. Not so much because of the burden of discussing it, because most of the check requisitions were approved quickly at most of the meetings. But at the same time, it's the delay in making a decision and often a delay in making a purchase or paying for a purchase. So that was the primary reason for the change.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. And I agree, I've been in a similar position and I was just thinking to myself, like I would spend way more than that and didn't have to be delayed in providing supplies or things for students. So I would agree with Latrice and Dr. Powers as relates to $10,000.
Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Go ahead.
Councilmember MacArthur does bring up a good point. I think we do have to take into consideration the school size. And Dr. Powers, I do appreciate you letting us know about the operating budget being about $12 million. So I guess I have two concerns and maybe a suggestion. So while I was attending the LSC as part of the public, I think when this came up, it was always expressed or presented to the LSC as there's nothing above $10,000 for the LSC to approve. And I think that is, when we're talking about transparency, I think I find it a little just curious about what are we spending or below $10,000. So that is my concern. And as the new LSC, I think it's important for us to see those transactions. Whether we approve them, I don't know how important that is, but I do want to see those transfers. I do want to see those reports. So that way I understand how the school is functioning, how we're meeting the CIWP, how we're supporting the students, how we're supporting the staff. So I'm amenable to raising the transfer, but I don't know if I wouldn't agree to $10,000, because after $10,000, CPS has to approve that, right? It's the LSC and the CPS central office has to approve it. So I'm amenable to raising it. The other suggestion that I would make is, if we do raise the transfers over $10,000 or whatever the amount is, then I would just add that we be given, right, the LSC be given a report, right, of every of the transfers and transactions below that amount. So if we keep the $10,000, for example, if we keep this $10,000 limit, where you don't have to seek the LSC approval for anything below $10,000, then I would like to see on at the next monthly meeting a report of how those funds were spent. I yield the floor. Thank you.
So my final comment is that, until we actually have a lot of detailed budget information and we're getting internal accounts reports every month and we really know what's happening, I don't think we have the information to know whether to be comfortable with $10,000. So I'm going to really stay a firm no on 10,000. And to be honest, I'm going to stay a firm no on over 2,500. So I'm just putting that out there to the rest of the council. Let's talk about the other last item, I think, where we got a comment. Sarah?
Yeah, so on page.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm sorry. I don't know if I would like to give Dr. Powers an opportunity to respond if he has any sort of response to my suggestions or comments.
I defer to the decision of the LSC. If you want to keep it 2,500, that is fine with me. It was for many years. I've already explained why we changed it.
Hi, this is Latrice again. So I would just go back to where we talked about earlier with tabling the ones that we all don't agree on, and take that up at a later time after we go through the other comments.
Yeah, I think there's just one more comment, and Sarah was gonna go to that page, actually go backwards.
Okay, so on page 9 and 10 of the draft bylaws, we talk about the committees. If you had the 2016 bylaws, I think there was 12 committees. This is down to 4. Just a little bit more manageable. Just remember that every committee has to follow OMA. And so it's not, I don't take committees lightly. So the 4 committees would be Health and Safety Committee. PPLC is already active, and so that's just more of a documentation. Budget Committee, and then a final committee, depending on the name, Equity and Excellence. There were some other names put forth, which would be, hold on, sorry, my screen. Equity and Education, or Educational Equity Committee, or Equity, yeah. So there was a few comments there for names. I'm not so worried about the name, more worried about what they're doing. I kind of like Equity and Excellence, but I really, it's just whatever name we think people will remember. Were there any comments on the committees?
And Roberto, you made the suggestion for the name comment. Do you have a preference? Do you have a favorite?
I think I don't have a preference. I do have an issue with excellence. I think it can be misconstrued. So I would probably, if the council would be okay with either Educational Equity Committee.
It's more than just education though, right? It's
That is true. It is more than educational. It's more about the entire high school experience. So we could do Equity and Education Committee.
Or just equity.
Or just equity.
But
That's fine.
to your point, education, but you have a reason you're on that word. So what was your thought?
Yeah, so, the issue that I have with excellence is that a lot of times it means it's misconstrued to think that, you're not working hard enough, or it's not transformational, and we're putting a lot of burden on the student to be more exceptional than they already are. So I'm okay with the equity committee. I think that that's fine. Shouldn't be controversial.
Okay, so then Cassie, how do we deal with like the things that we can't agree on, like the 2,500 or the, do we just put TBD? Like, do we just take that section out for now?
Yeah, and then we could put it on the agenda for next time, those two particular sections or comments.
I think we could approve the public participation as is, and then when we amend it to fix this internal accounts thing, we could add any other language that we find out. But I think it's, I don't think there's anything wrong with what's there.
Yeah,
we might want to add to it.
I mean, the same thing with the public participation as with the internal accounts. You don't have to have that specified in your bylaws, and that could be left out. And in that case, that's something that we approve as an LSC. We could approve a participation policy. We could approve the spending limit number. And to say it's going to hold till the next organizational meeting. And so it doesn't actually have to be set in the bylaws. And so then it's a little more flexible for all of us. And it's a 7-vote change versus a 2/3 majority change.
So you want me to take out the whole public participation? I think it looks pretty good. It's just missing the limit, the time. I think that we would approve this part. I'm saying if we could leave that in, then we can just amend if needed.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, if I may be recognized. Ms. Cruz explained everything, and I'm okay with her explanation. So if the way you have proposed it, I'm okay with that, as long as based on Ms. Cruz's explanation.
Thanks, Roberto. And we can put this on the agenda at any time forward, saying like, hey, we need to do a bylaws amendment, and I'd like to see this, have us discuss this particular section and amend it. And so it's really not like as big of a deal as like, we're passing a law here. So I think we need to have them as living bylaws that we can easily find on our website and refer to and adjust as necessary, including these committees, especially. And so
so can I make it a motion?
Number X or whatever, or letter
Yeah,
X.
can I make a motion to approve the draft agenda? I'm sorry. Can I make a motion to approve the bylaws without Article 9, Part X as given to the LSC members? Is there a second?
Yeah, is there a second?
Sarah,
I will second that motion.
Sarah, can you just clarify the part that will be, will you state what will not be included?
Yes, I'm going to delete or remove section 9, part X. I guess it's part X, section 9. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm looking at the screen. Can you pull it up? I just want to be able to see.
Yeah, Troy, can you, Troy, it's on page 12.
Oh, Troy, thank you.
There we go. Yeah, you can see I crossed it out.
Okay, there you have it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Oh, Article 9, Section X. I have a lot of documents. Can someone remind me who seconded?
Dr. Powers did.
Thank you.
And then Rachel had a question in the chat about this. Rachel, we can, I think someone could, if they want to revisit this discussion at next meeting, you can just ask to have it put on the agenda. And so when you want to vote again on it, we can bring it up then. And we could, have a little joint item to consider both. this and the public participation policy.
Well, and I would say this to everyone, it does default to the 2,500 now, since these bylaws supersede any other previous bylaws, and the 2016 bylaws didn't have the $10,000 amount. So I think we need to go think about it, and then this needs to be put on the agenda for February's meeting. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote then. Woohoo! Okay, Bowman.
Yeah, Sarah,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
If you're saying this defaults to 2,500, then we should just leave X there and then decide next month to whether to vote on removing it.
I don't disagree. I mean, it didn't occur to me when we were having the discussion, but like the default is 2,500, and since we're a new council, what the old council agreed on the $10,000 amount doesn't carry over. It wasn't documented. It's not even documented from what I can tell. So we could leave it in and then put it on the agenda for February to amend the bylaws. That's it's 6 to 1, half dozen to another. But I do think the default is now 2,500.
I think since we've had a motion and a second for everyone's, I think the simplest thing is
to take it out.
Vote on it as it stands with it X'd out.
Okay.
And that's easier.
Okay, I'm going to restate the motion. I'm making a motion to adopt the bylaws to remove Article 9, Section 10. Dr. Power seconded. I'll do a roll call vote. Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Cresswell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Ma, yay. Martin Sack.
Yay.
Garther.
Yes.
Menivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Abstain.
Was that a yay or abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. And Zen.
Yay.
Okay, that's 11 yays, 1 abstain, and it was approved with 11 out of 12 votes. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, the next item under old business is the reopening of the building. We can have some discussion, but I think the best way to open that discussion is for Rachel to introduce a letter that she worked on drafting, and a lot of, so to give my own little brief introduction here, many schools now across CPS, the local school councils have passed either letters or resolutions talking about their concerns or their outright opposition to reopening right now, and opposition in particular to like the district level plan for reopening. And so there's a lot of, you can find those letters. I can put a link in the chat to that if you want to see. I think it's more than 60 schools now. And Rachel, why don't you go ahead and talk about the letter that you've drafted?
So I drafted a letter because I think that as an LSC, we are in a particularly unique position in that we had the opportunity to hear from the Jones school community after the school reopened. And I know that a lot of the LSCs across the city have put forward letters to CPS regarding the reopening plan that were written prior to the reopening, kind of asking for a greater or I guess a more substantial conversation between educators, teachers, staff members, parents, and students with the district. But the Jones LSC got the chance to listen. So that's what this letter is structured based on the comments from the last meeting. I just kind of sat with them and tried to paint a picture of what the Jones school community was saying in regards to the reopening plan. And so the two main things that it stresses are just kind of a more in-depth conversation in regards to reopening, and then also just really looking at remote learning and trying to improve upon remote learning pushing more resources toward that, so that, you know, if we are going to say to CPS that we are hoping to have a more substantial conversation about reopening, then as we do that, we should also think about what we're doing currently, which is remote learning. So that's kind of the basis of the letter, is just like kind of responding to what the community said, the Jones School community said last week.
Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Yep.
I would just say that to everyone, this is a very symbolic letter. And it's just a way to show unity with the teachers and show our support for the community. And just remember to our Eagle Day point, we really don't have a lot of say, but hopefully many voices united will bring change. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Rachel and I together worked on sort of a general summary of concerns as well, that we circulated to the council yesterday. I can put that in the chat as well. And trying to, that was just the same reopening letter again. So I'll share that. It could be that we wanted to, you know, put this on as an addendum to the letter if people thought that was helpful, so that we were really, you know, covering the particular issues here at Jones with reopening. And I don't know if that's of interest to people on the council, if you got a chance to look at it. If not, hopefully it was at least informative as you consider whether to support the idea of passing the letter. And do people have other questions and thoughts on this? I know that there's been some discussion at other places about, you know, is this something that we can do? And is this like within our purview as a local school council? And really weighing in publicly by sending letters and passing resolutions, even if they are non-binding, it's certainly something that we can do. And as Sarah said, it has a symbolic benefit. So even if it, you know, we can't force policy change through these actions.
Can I just say one more thing, just super quick? This past summer, I think I mentioned this last week, but this past summer, CPS did give LSCs power over a decision that, you know, it didn't have an immediate effect because we, you know, we're in remote learning. But the school resource officer decision, that was a choice that CPS, you know, gave to each and every LSC. And so I think regarding reopening, I see a similarity in how, you know, this LSC and every LSC across the city can evaluate the circumstances for the individual school. And so, you know, the reopening plan is for the entire district, but can we have a more specific conversation that's pertinent to Jones? That's kind of where I see this letter.
Madam Chair, this is Roberto Mangivar. May I be recognized?
Yep, go ahead, Robert.
So I do have one question and maybe an amendment to the letter. So I'd like to hear from the PPLC whether they represent the staff and what their staff input was with this letter and I guess last week's conversation, because this impacts not just the teachers, but our clerks, our security guards, and our SECA, so our special education assistants, teacher assistants. So I just like to know, like, how, if they were consulted and invited to what their feedback was. And then on that note, on page 2, on I believe it's like the 4th paragraph down, where it indicates CPS has not provided additional training for teachers with respect to simultaneous instruction, nor has the district indicated that they will compensate teachers for their additional time. I think it is important to include staff in that as well.
The only reason I didn't, Roberto, I think it's a good addition. Except I was thinking in terms of like pedagogy. You know, staff are not participating in pedagogy, from my understanding. So that's the only reason. But I do think it's a thinking about simultaneous learning. I was thinking about what that looks like inside of the classroom. That's where I was going. But I think Cassie might be able to respond to your first question.
So not related to this amendment part here. Roberto, can you restate it?
Yeah, so on page 2, starting off with every single person in that paragraph, the paragraph starting with every single person. Yeah, so towards the last 2 sentences or 3 sentences, it says additional training for teachers with respect to simultaneous instructions, and then compensating the teachers for additional novel skills. I don't know if it would be appropriate, and I defer to the PPLC and whoever's representing the staff, if that would be appropriate.
So you want like not just teachers, but so you're talking about like teacher assistants, SICAs, like to include that?
That's correct. So I think staff, right? So it would be staff and teachers, or teachers and staff. But again, I defer to the PPLC and whoever the staff representative is.
I'm going to answer your question, Roberto, about the PPLC surveying teachers. So we have like informally conducted surveys with the teaching staff, and so we have a majority of teachers who are opposed to the current CPS reopening plan. The PPLC specifically represents teaching staff, so that's teachers as well as counselors. We do not have like the authority or the ability to represent non-teaching staff members, including our SICAs, security guards, clerks, for example. So that's definitely not our purview. I think, Troy, I know that you are like the non-teaching staff LSC representative, so that's probably something you can speak to a little bit more in depth than I could at this time.
Well, I haven't had any feedback from any of the non-teaching staff, mostly the clerks that have been working. Unfortunately, I don't have any more information for you.
Roberto, I think you could make like a friendly amendment along those lines and just say that you'd like it to say teachers and staff, additional training for teachers and staff, and we'll compensate teachers and staff if Rachel likes that amendment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would like to motion to amend the response to
reopening
to include teachers and staff.
I think let's make sure we get all our amendment, like any changes, and then we'll make one big motion. Thank you.
I think that'll be the simplest motioning. Does anyone have any other additional things like that? And yeah, and we got a chance to look at the things in yellow that Rachel added today or more recently. So I am happy to entertain a motion to accept it as it is written here, along with Roberto's friendly amendment.
Cassie?
Yes.
Are you footnoting your other document, or that's just something?
Oh, that's right. So would people like to add that on as an addendum, or should we just write it into the minutes as like the background information? Rachel, do you have a preference?
I would like to add it to the letter.
So I am happy to entertain a whole motion that says we'd like the stuff in yellow and Roberto's friendly amendment and the addendum, but if someone would like to make that motion.
Madam Chair, I make the motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, great. Do it.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the letter with the amendments and the amendments as discussed today, including the staff and teachers and the summary concerns related to the reopening of the Jones Cluster Program.
And I'll second the motion.
Great, Chair, or Chair, do you want to take the roll?
Yes, hold on, I'm just writing. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Sorry, hold on. Bowman,
Yay.
Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yay.
Cresswell,
Yay.
Hernandez,
Yay.
Hillbrands,
Yay.
me, yay. Martinsek,
Yay.
MacArthur,
Yay.
Menavar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yay.
Zen.
Okay.
Okay, 12 were yays, 0 were nays. 12 out of 12 approving the letter and the, what am I calling it? Addendum?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for all your work on this. And I think it's a super important thing. And even if it's symbolic, like LSCs, that's a lot of our power is symbolic, let's be honest. And so it's important to take that step to show solidarity with the teachers and students back in the building and with the entire school district working on this issue. Okay, we have finished our old business, you guys, and it is 8:15. So we can move on to new business. Our first item is approving items over $2,500. There are none this month, as from what I can tell, according to Mr. Voigt and Dr. Powers. So that item is rapidly dispensed with this month. For budget transfers, I'm assuming there are none of those either that we were informed of. Is that correct? Dr. Powers, alert us if we are moving too quickly on that item.
I'd ask Mr. Voigt if he would indicate any of the things on the monthly report that are budget transfers, other than the routine items that we do all the time.
Okay, so that item is also complete. We're flying through here. For approving fundraisers, in general, for all the local school council members, please look at, especially the LSC reference guide has a very good outline of all the various fundraisers that we're supposed to be having oversight over. And I think that too is something that could go through the budget committee. And so we can get a big single report of all of these things in future months once the budget committee is up and going. And I think that'll be super helpful to keep the meeting moving, but also have a lot of transparency on this stuff. So I don't think there's any for this month as well. I think there was an idea that there might be a student one.
Yeah, Ms. Creswell, we do have a fundraiser from one of our teachers. I'll just quickly summarize it for you. This is from Mrs. Parada from our languages department. And the fundraiser proposal is working with, and again, just to stipulate with regard to fundraisers approved by the LSC, any fundraiser that involves an outside organization, meaning you have a company or something that you're working through as a typical school type of thing where you're selling a product and a portion comes back to the school and a portion remains as profit to that company. But this is one of such things. It's a group organization called Charleston Wrap, and they have wrapping paper, food, kitchenware, candles, and other products. So it's not just wrapping paper, it's a number of different things. There are no money up front involved with any of this. Purchases are sent directly to the buyer's home, so we do not have to worry about any kind of distribution. The organization, this is the Spanish Honor Society, if I'm not mistaken, receives 40% profit on each item sold. And that's basically what it is. This is pretty simple, straightforward thing. We try to monitor these types of fundraisers to make sure there is no financial obligation on the part of the school or a part of any of the individuals. And with the advent of more online programs such as this, it's easier for the organization to have people making purchases directly with whatever company it is. And then the credit for that goes to the school and the credit goes to the company. So that is it. It's wishing to work with Charleston Wrap to have people buy products, and 40% of the profits or 40% of the take on that goes to the organization.
Madam Chair, can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
Is there a reason why they would do their own fundraiser as opposed to going to Friends of Jones? Is this because it would be one of those banquets?
No, it's just fun. We encourage student organizations to conduct their own fundraisers. Very often, in conversations I've had with Friends of Jones over the years, when some school organization puts in a grant request, they'll say, "What are you doing to try to raise money as well?" So I think it's an important part of clubs and organizations that they have different ways in which they have some equity in the process of having some funds, rather than all of it being funded from an outside source, either through budget or through grant from Friends of Jones.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other council questions? Okay. So do we have a motion on this? And
I'll move.
Okay, Sarah will make Sarah restate the motion after we get a second.
A second.
Okay. So just the motion was to approve the Spanish Honor Society fundraiser with Charleston Wrap. I'll do a roll call. Sorry, the minutes are, you guys are killing me. Okay. Roll call. Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Cresswell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Yay. Martinsek.
Yay.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Menjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
12 out of 12 are yays, and we can go and buy some stuff, some candles. Okay, next.
Thanks. Okay, next up is the appointing a community rep to fill the vacancy. So we have a bunch of people who probably hopefully haven't been scared off by the length of this meeting and have withdrawn their candidacy this evening already. And hopefully they're still here. We have several of them have put in statements, and I guess the best thing is I will open the statement doc to see their list of names, and I think we'll try to just go through them alphabetically. So community rep candidates, if you could stand at the ready, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a little brief bio and intro and why you want to serve on the LSC. And if you could keep it to under 2 minutes, that would be great. And I also really want to emphasize, since we have so much and we have so much work to do as a council, we would love for everyone to stay involved. The good thing about committees is that you can really do the work of the LSC and include non-LSC members in those deliberations and activities. And so the committees can also have community representation on them. And so we can only fill one spot, but it would be really good to have continued interest from the community at large and get them involved in the work of the school. So I think the first one alphabetically, is it Laura Bitu-Biaro, which I've just totally mangled your name. Not a great start on my part, sorry. Laura, are you available? Oh, there she is.
No worries, yes. It's Berio, Cherio, Berio.
Right.
By the way. So thank you. First of all, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I want to first start off by acknowledging all the student speakers in this meeting. It was very, and commend them for their vulnerability and their leadership. Yameli, I'm so sorry for your loss, but it was, I was very glad to see student voice being represented in the local school council. I would like to serve on the local school council because, as my statement of candidacy states, like I have extensive experience in education. I've had over 15 years of experience in education. I started my educational career in 2006 as a high school English teacher. And since then, I've had a plethora of different leadership roles. I've taught both high school and elementary school, but I've also been the department chair. I've been a co-grade level chair where I, worked with budget and fundraising and was able to procure multiple grants for my schools. I also, currently, or most recently worked as the Dean of Students or the School Culture Coordinator. So I've had a lot of experience, with, social emotional learning, restorative practices. I recently had a baby, and that's when I decided not to return after the pandemic to spend time with my 4-month-old, given the, what's going on with the world, but I'd still like to be a very active member in the educational community. I am a South Looper. I actually live right around the corner in the Dearborn Park area. I've lived in the South Loop for 8 years. I think, what drives my passion for learning and for education and to serve on this, as a LSC community rep is really stems, as my candidate statement says, from my parents. I was an EL learner. My parents immigrated to the United States and taught me an invaluable lesson that, no one can ever take your education from you. And that really resonated with me and propelled me into this field of work and as a lifelong learner. So my passion is stemmed from there. And I really, in everything that I do, both inside and outside the classroom, I work to make sure that there is equity in education so that all students have access to a quality education. As the Dean of Students or School Culture Coordinator, I've sat on the instructional leadership team. So I've worked with developing and cultivating professional development around equity and other priorities. I've led a culture club. I've spent some time looking at the website of Jones College Prep, and I know that there's a big focus on equity, and like Latrice and a few others, Barb, and I think Anthony said, social emotional learning is incredibly important. Mental health is incredibly important, not just during this time, but in general. So like thinking about ways like we did, not just celebrating students, but also talking about equity in terms of culturally responsive teaching, multicultural education, and social justice education, and how do we embed those things, and how do we really embed that SEL standards, not just like, I love the Eagle Day, but also within everyday curriculum. I'd love to do more work with that. So I don't know where I'm at with 2 minutes, but I can round it out. But I just ultimately think that I would be a great resource, and I'm very passionate about this work, and I hope you consider me for the role of LSC. Oh, and I could put this in the chat too, but if you are still developing the equity, or the SEL plan, you may already have this resource, but PBIS is a great website for resources for like, the different tiered resources for students, whether it's behavior or whether it's like, student is crying. It gives you sort of unpacking those behaviors and how to really help students. I'm very much a proponent of restorative practices and helping students like reflect on their actions and how to make things right. And I think that is coupled with the work that we do with equity and making sure students' voices are heard and students are, we're really educating the whole student, like the mission of Jones College Prep aims to. Sorry, that was a lot.
Cassie, you're muted.
I know. Oh, okay. Sorry. I had the rainbow beach ball one I needed to unmute. Okay. Thank you so much, Laura. I think alphabetically next is Violet Santa Prado. Violet, you're up. If we can unmute you and find you in the Zoom. Great.
Okay. Hi, my name is Violeta Xochitl Serna Prado. I am a Pilsen, Chicago native. I grew up in the Pilsen neighborhood. I like to say I am from pre-gentrified Pilsen. My parents arrived to the Pilsen community in the 70s, like many immigrants, to seek educational opportunities for their children. My mother actually graduated from Jones Commercial in 1982. She graduated valedictorian, no big deal, but she went off to UIC, and she actually opened her own certified accounting firm. So I always start with my family story because they are the backbone and the reason for everything that I do, especially as it comes to education. My mom is a huge role in my life, and she's one of my biggest role models. She was actually really starting her business when she was pregnant with me, and it didn't take off until I was in high school. So she actually owns the largest Latina-owned certified public accounting firm in the Midwest. So go Jones. And when I was 14, actually, is the first time that I left my Pilsen community to attend another selective enrollment high school in the city of Chicago. That was the first time I was brought face to face with what inequity looks like within the system of education. And the way that I demonstrated my anger towards it was honestly radically fighting against it every chance that I got. So at 14 years old, I really started organizing myself, my family, and the students around me to fight back against some of the injustices that I saw within my own selective enrollment environment community. I don't want to throw their name out there, but that was a huge turning point in my life. I ended up graduating 4 years later, and I went to DePaul University. And then shortly after, I went back to Pilsen, and I taught for 3 years, actually not in Pilsen, but in the Austin neighborhood as a special education teacher. I have a lot of this other information in my candidate statement. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the reason why I want to be on the LSC, I have glanced through the BIPOC Jones page. A lot of the stories that are shared there are very personal to my own experience. They're not just stories on a wall. They really do resonate with me and have really called me into action, especially since Jones is in my district. I am still an educator, so I'm actually a multicultural studies reading teacher. I'm also department chair for the reading department. I also lead our Latino affinity group at my school. So I saw that the PPLC had something about how like homophobia and racism was coming up. And that's one of the ways that we've tried to tackle it within our own school. So a lot of experience there. I've run a lot of SEL programs with our school, specifically high school. So we've started a mentorship program from underclassmen and upperclassmen. And I also am lead LSU, Latino Student Union, where we do talk a lot about anti-Blackness in the Latino community and how even though racism can happen to us, we are still responsible and we can often play a role in the oppression of Black people. So what does that look like in our communities and how do we help advocate for our Black brothers and sisters? And I'm also on the Illinois State Board of Education Diverse Learner Ready Teachers program. So we just actually December 12th approved the culturally responsive teaching standards for the state of Illinois, which was amazing. So take a glance at that. And yeah, I've done policy work for recruiting and retaining teachers of color. And I'm currently doing some philanthropy stuff with the Education Equity Fund in Chicago. So I'll be ready to answer your questions.
Thanks, Violetta. Here we go. I think the next speaker should be Jacob Longo. Jacob, let's look for you here. Is Jacob on the call? I'm not seeing him in the J's. Let's skip ahead to Michael Perkins. Michael, I think I just scrolled past your name.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Good evening, council members and everyone else. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight and seek appointment to the community representative position. Definitely want to second Laura's comments about the student involvement we've seen tonight. And again, Yamali, sincere condolences for the loss of your sister. So as hopefully many of you have seen in my candidate statement, I mentioned there that I've always had a strong motivation to be an involved member of the community in which I live. That definitely currently includes Jones. I'm actually right across the street from it. I don't know if it's light enough to see, but you could actually spot the old building from out the window behind me. But again, always had a strong motivation to be an involved community member and try to make a positive impact in the community that I live in. And in that candidate statement, I also stated that I don't think there are many areas in which you can make a more profound impact in your community than in public education. And that's a big reason why I chose to begin my career as a teacher here in Chicago. But that's where I'm coming from in terms of my motivation to serve on the LSC. What I believe I'd be bringing to the LSC is one, a demonstrated commitment to public education. That's where I started my career. That's where I've spent much of my career. Two, the direct and diverse experience I've had in public education, having worked both as a classroom teacher and also as a manager in the central administration for CPS. And lastly, as a member of the LSC, I would hope to contribute the skill set I often employ in my current work, which is consulting with different stakeholders, taking their often diverse input, identifying what the most critical issues are, and working to build consensus around a shared objective or solution. So I attended last week's LSC meeting and definitely came away from that meeting with the impression that that's certainly a task that's currently before the council regarding the question of how to resume in-person instruction. And I'm sure the same would apply to a lot of matters that would come up before the council. If given the opportunity to serve as a community representative, my hope is that I can make a valuable contribution in addressing those kinds of matters by applying the experiences and skill sets that I've just shared with you. And I respectfully ask you all for the privilege of that opportunity. All right. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Michael. And I think looking through, I don't think Adrian is on the call. Adrian, if you are here, speak up, but I don't think I see you. Finally, just make sure I'm not scrolling also here. Next, JY Sun. Oh, great. I think you're unmuted.
Hi, everybody. I'm JY. Thank you to the LSC for allowing me the time and space to speak today. Like everybody who's spoken before me, I am also an educator. I come from a long line of public educators. Both of my parents teach in public institutions. And I'm applying for the community rep spot in this LSC because I believe that our schools are one of the most powerful spaces and tools for nurturing anti-oppressive and anti-racist work in our society. And we also know that too often our schools fall short or end up doing the opposite and produce inequitable results. I've seen this as a student attending public schools my entire life, as the child of immigrants, growing up as a non-binary LGBTQ person. I've seen this as a public school teacher myself, who's had to revamp entire course curriculums to better reflect my students' identities, their histories, and their lived experiences. And so I see the LSC as a muscle that needs to be exercised, and muscles can atrophy. And so this moment that we are in right now, I think calls for a reimagining of what our local school councils can do, not merely to serve, but to empower every single one of our students, not just some of them. And I think it's really evident that the students at Jones have been voicing that from everything that we've heard tonight over the last several LSC meetings. And our students deserve an LSC and leaders who are willing to put their necks out there, make space for them and their families, say and do these sometimes difficult but necessary things that get more equitable outcomes for every single person, every single student in the Jones community. And that includes being candid, transparent, and unafraid to name past wrongs and clearly lay out a plan for what the future will be. And I would do that as a member of this LSC. And it's refreshing to see that this LSC is already moving in that direction. And I would be so honored to be able to join you all in this work. Thanks.
Thank you so much, JY. So we have time to do some questions from the council for the candidates. I think to try to make this as smooth and equitable as we can, probably ask your most important question. We'll give everyone a chance to ask one question, then we'll go around another round. So it's helpful if you have a question that you want to direct to a particular person, a particular candidate. And I will try to see all of you, but you may have to speak up. Elaine?
Yes.
You're off mute.
Good evening. This question is for Michael. Can you talk to me about what you would do to create an anti-racist environment at Jones?
Yeah, I think probably the first step in addressing, in trying to achieve an anti-racist environment at Jones would be to listen to what the experiences have been of students of color at Jones, and listen to the ways that they have experienced an environment that falls short of that. I think that's where that process would have to start. And then obviously, take it from there, take those students' input in trying to address what are currently the causes, of an environment that falls short of that description.
Okay, so we've taken those steps. Is there anything else that you would do? Because we did have a listening session.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. Obviously, yeah, not surprised that that's where you've started, because that's kind of the obvious place to start. I think it would then, the next step in my mind would then be teacher and staff and student, probably I would say student training as well, about the history. To me, I've always thought that with all the issues, not just in education, but all the issues we've had in that stem from a legacy of racism in this country, what it stems from in large part is a failure to understand the history of that racism in our country and in various institutions like public education. And I think having started with hearing, what the experiences of the students have been with regard to racism within the environment, I think that the next step would be to make sure that the community has an understanding of not only what is currently happening that is causing students to experience instances of racism and how that's affecting them, but to understand what got us to that point. Why are we still dealing with institutions and systems that allow that to persist and that have created structures that sadly encourage environments of racism. So again, to make a long answer short, I think the next step would be basically a community discussion that has as its focus educating everyone, especially white staff, white teachers, and white students on the history that's led us to this point and created the environment that we're now trying to remedy.
Have you done any equity work before?
I've gotten involved in equity work I used to work for Teach for America, and I didn't share this work, but I definitely worked closely with the chair of a committee we formed internally, and this was for staff, on staff with Teach for America, not teachers, but people actually working in the central office here in Chicago, to basically do kind of what I just described, to educate our whole community, again, especially the white members of our community, on what has gotten us to this point. So what we did was we organized basically like a book club where we together read different books that helped educate us. Like the one that I'm recalling at this moment is A Different Mirror. I'm failing to remember the author, but it's a great book that I would definitely recommend to anybody, that provides an extensive history of the experience of different groups of color in this country, and the history that has brought us to this point. But yeah, that's probably been the most direct experience I've had in.
So did you all get to like actual actions, because that's where we are now. We really need an action plan, and to be able to move to action. We listen, you can read. I'm just wondering about action. I don't want to go on long, but that is definitely a great need. And honestly, that's what I'm looking for in someone who would join it, because this is an important work.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Unfortunately, with that specific experience, I wasn't on staff long enough, I think, to see that work carry on through what the actions might have been. So I can't speak to that, but I definitely agree with that point for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Elaine. Thank you, Michael. I'll especially encourage questions to other candidates. Latrice?
I do. I have a quick question for Violetta, and I apologize if I missed this, but I was just curious, after your experience with selective enrollment, why you chose Jones as opposed to a different school.
Oh, we gotta unmute you. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would have loved to have been on the local school council at my selective enrollment high school, but I'm honestly not in the voting district nor in like the place where I could run for their LSC. But my overall call to serving at a selective enrollment high school in particular, as opposed to my community high school, is because of the experience that I had at my high school. So as much as, I was a student, I went in 2007, graduated 2011. The selective enrollment process was inequitable and the experience was even worse. And I actually just organized a number of alumni of color, about 35 last October, when an article was released by NPR, like verbatim telling people what the experiences were at the high school. And when people pushed back, the alumni came out and we spoke about how this wasn't a new thing. This has been going on for years. And so even though I can't be on the LSC at the high school that I graduated from, I have reached out to their current principal. And I have also sought out the administration so we can ensure that we're providing the supports needed, not just for low income students, but also for students coming from predominantly BIPOC neighborhoods, right? Because we know that the city of Chicago is so segregated that it's so easy to get lost in your cyclos. And that was my safe haven. Pilsen was my blood, my everything. And when I was taken out of that community and put into a predominantly white institution, I didn't know how else to respond except through agitation and anger. And that lasted for 4 years. So I'm carrying that agitation and anger as a 27-year-old now and seeking the appointment of LSC community rep at Jones.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Latrice. Thanks, Violetta. And anyone have a next question?
I have a question for all the candidates. I just want to know how long everybody thinks they'd be able to stay with the LSC, just for the sake of it being consistent, and, you being dedicated to the work and being able to draw it out over the course of years, hopefully.
So I can just go around and ask you guys and unmute you. Laura, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yes. So like I mentioned, I've had extensive experience in education, and now I'm taking the time to really be a mother and stay home with my daughter. So right now I am indefinitely will serve on the LSC. That is my goal. I still want to be involved in education. I've been an educator, I've been an administrator. Especially in the culture and climate in this world, I'm very much a proponent of meeting students' needs, and especially in a time like this when we all need the supports. At the end of the school year, I really worked with making sure the students got that support in many different ways, whether it was like through I created some good news video. I worked with students to create like a peacekeeper program where students work to resolve issues. I even just giving students the opportunity to have a safe space to talk. I spent a lot of time collaborating with parents and students and educators and having those difficult conversations as the Title IX coordinator. I've been there, I've had those conversations, and going back to Elaine's question about what are concrete next steps. And I think ultimately all of that comes down to, we need to start with knowing our students. And so knowing our students and making sure that they see themselves in the classroom, and that goes back to equity and the pillars of equity. So knowing that sorry, I know this is a little bit outside of that question, but I would like to speak to Elaine's question. But basically making sure that not only our curriculum is reflected, but that we're hitting just all those, culturally responsive teaching with the lessons that we're doing, like Zaretta Hammond says in her book, Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. We can gamify lessons, we can make them like stories, we can make them social. So I spent a lot of time with students doing those kinds of things, which not only allowed them an outlet, social emotionally, but it also still allowed them to meet their needs academically. And so because I feel like I'm still, very much coming off of that experience, I really like to continue that work. And I think that I would be a very great resource, not only because of my experience, but because of my network and the knowledge that I have with equity.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, JY.
Hi. So I think the original question is how long I would be serve on the LSC. I recently moved into the zoning area for Jones. I have no future plans to leave this area. My plan is to make Chicago home. So for the foreseeable future, I know it is an elected position if I were to be appointed. So for as long as the community would have me on the LSC.
Thank you. Violetta?
Yeah, I would definitely echo JY's sentiments in terms of community and democracy. So as long as the community votes me in, but definitely for the 2 years. So yeah.
Yeah, right now it is 18 months. So the election cycle will be basically in April 2022. And Michael?
Yeah, so similar to JY, similar to Violetta, no plans to leave Chicago or most likely the South Loop anytime soon. I've fallen in love with the neighborhood. Love to stay. Again, going back to the candidate statement, would love for my participation or my service on the LSC to be a big part of me being a part of that neighborhood. So definitely for the 18 months of this initial term, and then for as long as the LSC voters would have me.
Thank you. Okay, council members, anything else that you are hoping to know here?
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Roberto.
This question is for JY. You mentioned in your remarks and also in your prepared remarks that you were part of the Diversity, Equity, Anti-Racism Committee. And to follow up with member Elaine Buggs' question to you is, what were concrete action steps that you took and what were the results of those actions?
Thanks for the question. So when I was working as a data scientist at Leap Innovations, which is a Chicago-based education nonprofit that works with dozens of schools, yes, archdiocese and suburban schools, I stood up the DEIA, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Committee. I was the chair of that committee, and some concrete actions that we took were an org-wide top-to-bottom audit of all of our different departments: marketing, development, professional development, instructional coaching. And we devised a set of questions that were specific to each department that we would ask ourselves, like, are our practices equitable, right? Are the things that our instructional coaches are going out and training teachers on in schools throughout the city, are those actively anti-racist? Are we pushing teachers to do things that are actually culturally sustainable? When our development team goes and talks with donors, are we taking money from donors that have racist views, that are problematic in any other way, right? How do we reconcile that? Are we having really critical conversations with our board of directors, right? And so what this involved was involving stakeholders across our organizations, as well as external stakeholders, because we did work with students, we did work with parents and families and teachers to do this audit and begin to institute some of those changes. Some other things that we ended up doing was instituting a routine schedule for doing internal trainings on anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion. Now we cannot, like, as you all probably know, do PDs and just train our way out of racism. Like, some people, it is not possible to train them out of that, right? And so sometimes you have to have those crucial conversations. This is above my pay grade, right? Of what happens when those issues are irreconcilable, right? And so I think those conversations are also really important. It's also really important to involve people in an organization at varying seniority levels. So just in the last organization I was at, I am not with LEAP anymore. Those are some of the things that we've done. Currently, I work at Noble. I do data stuff for them, and a lot of it is reevaluating how are our algorithms, which we use to direct students and how they're applying to college, how have those been problematic in the past? We have had algorithms that have suppressed HBCU college choices for our Black students. That is racist, right? So we need to redesign how our tools have worked in order to best serve what is 40% of our student body population. And I'm leading that work as well.
Thank you so much.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Super quick, because there are so many really great ideas and beliefs kind of being shared amongst everyone. So I kind of have a tough question. So the LSC work is not, sometimes the meetings go on a little long. And so we talked about commitment, but I do wonder for those of the people who have applied for candidacy for the community rep position, if you would be interested in working on a committee that we have just kind of voted on tonight in our bylaws, because we're going to have 3 committees. One of them is an equity committee. So there seems to be a lot of really, great ideas and energy here. And so I just wonder, I don't know who to direct this question to, but if that work would be, if that would be something you'd be interested in, if for instance, someone were to not get the position tonight.
I think we can make this a lightning round.
I'm already off. Whether I'm appointed or not, count me in.
Thanks. Let me see here. Laura.
I agree.
Violetta.
100%, 115% in.
Michael.
Definitely yes.
Thanks, Rachel. Very nice job putting everyone on the spot. Yes. Do we have more questions to entertain here from my council?
No, do we want to move? I don't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on anyone, but if we're
yes, the issue is like, we can, if you want to have more open discussion, this is a situation where a closed session is allowed during an open meeting. And so we can move to a closed session to have a discussion if people sort of feel like you'd like to have that discussion before making a motion for a particular candidate, because the way it'll work, essentially, we can just, make a motion for a candidate and vote on it. So it's set up to do that.
So I think it would be good to go to a quick closed session. I know Troy has that set up, even if it's just 5 minutes, just so we can have a quick discussion, and then we do come back into the open session to vote. But if everyone knows who they want and they're ready to just go right now, then let me know.
Is there an inclination here?
I think a closed session is really called for in this situation. It's what we have always done in the past. I think it's appropriate.
I agree.
We do not vote in the closed session. We only discuss and then we vote in open session when we reconvene.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to move to closed session at 8:58 p.m.
A second.
Okay, Ms. Boyd seconded. I'm sorry, I have to do a quick roll call vote. Bowman?
Yes.
Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez, Hillbrands.
Yay.
Ma is yes. Martinsek,
Yes.
MacArthur,
Yes.
Menjivar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yay.
Zen,
Yay.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, 12:12. We're going to move to closed session. Troy is going to catapult us to the breakout room. Please hold.
And for the audience still here, you can take a little 5-minute recess.
So bear with me, I've never done this, so let's see here, 1 second.
Oh.
I don't think that worked.
Troy,
Yes.
Troy, initially when you started, I saw something that said join a group, but then you did something and it went away. So there it is. It's up again. So it says join breakout room. So I think you have it up. I'm going to join this room. You guys join. Yeah, it just says join the room. You'll see it on the left.
Did we all make it back? It's very hard to tell. Maybe we can stop sharing the blue thing. Excellent. Okay, scan here if the 12 of us returned. So I think I call it back to order here in the open session. We have to do another roll call when we get back? Or can we just tell them we're here?
No, because we did the roll call when we left.
Okay, great. Okay, so now is really the time that we will entertain motions on the filling the community rep candidacy. And if we have more than one, I think we entertain them one at a time. Yeah, and we can kind of do like we did with the officer positions. So I am open to entertaining motions.
I motion to nominate Violetta for the candidate, the community representative position.
I second that motion.
I got Latrice as a second, and the motion is to appoint. Okay.
So close.
Great. I think we kind of held our discussion. And so I don't know if we need to have any other, and if there's other nominations, I'm leaving this wait time here. If not, I think we could have Sarah do the roll call vote.
Okay. Roll call vote for the motion to appoint Violetta, and I'll put your entire name in the minutes, to the community representative LSC position. Roll call vote: Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Cresswell.
Yay.
Hernandez.
Yay.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Ma. Yay. Martin Sek.
Yay.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Menjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
12 yeas, 0 nays, and Violetta is now our new community representative.
Congratulations, Violetta. Very happy to have you join us. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, JY. Thank you, Michael. And we will absolutely be calling on you to join our newly approved committees. And so please stay in touch. I'm not sure if I was on the invitation emails, so I'll put my email in the chat. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Yes,
much. I'm really excited to continue working with you all and get to know you all better, as well as all the other candidates that we will hope to see at the equity one specifically. Thank you all.
Okay, gosh, let me find this document. So let's evaluate what we have going forward. It's 9:20. I would very much like to pass or consider the Black Lives Matter at School Week, because we are not going to meet again before February, as far as I know. So I think that would be a good thing to try to cover. Eagle Day, I think we can make that a pretty, we can try to keep that a brief discussion, because we've heard a lot from both Dr. Powers and from speakers and from Denaya. So I think we kind of have a good idea of what our options are there. So I think let's try to get through those two. And if we can table some of the other things, but I am open to not tabling all of that. And in some of the discussion could be actually pretty quick, and we can then continue it at the next meeting, because I think Sarah has some information about if we do some streaming of the meeting, we could actually maybe take care of the translation as at least an initial pilot experiment. So I think we will. Do people have a feeling about E? Should we just open up and talk about it quick and decide if we are ready to just pick committee chairs or whether we're going to table it?
I think we could table the committee chairs. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we're gonna meet again for February. Do we think any of the Eagle Day work could be taken on by like the Health and Safety Committee? And would it help to set that up now?
I
Like,
think hearing from the students tonight and just their concerns around that issue, I mean, as a council member, I would kind of like to get started on that. Just because it seems like, you know, it needs to be put into motion. So I would like to see the like health and safety committee kind of
get formed.
Yeah.
Since we're discussing this anyway, do we have people who would like to self-nominate themselves or be picked for the committee chairs? Because if people have strong feelings already, we could make this, finish this item and then have to drown. If discussing whether to table it just as a discussion of it, let's just discuss it. Anyone want to step up?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Councilmember Rachel Zen for the Health and Safety Committee. I think if I heard you correct, you're already meeting with students, or there's something in the works.
I would just like to kind of go off of the momentum that the students brought to the meeting tonight, and I just feel like thank you for the nomination. I would just feel like it's time. So yeah.
I second that.
Great, we can do, I'm happy to take a vote on nominating Rachel to chair the.
Great, I can do a roll call vote for that unless there's any objections. Okay, roll call vote to make Rachel Zen the committee chair for the Health and Safety Committee. Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Cresswell.
I think Violetta should be before me.
She's not, I don't think she's technically, that doesn't how that works. I don't think she's really on until next meeting.
I think you're on immediately, to be honest.
Yeah, she's on immediately.
She's on immediately?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Violetta, which last name should I, is it?
I was going by Serna Prada.
Okay, Serna Prada. Okay, Serna Prada.
Yay.
Cresswell.
Yay.
Hernandez.
Yay.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Ma, yay. Martinsek.
Yay.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Menjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
So that was 13 out of 13, our new number for Zen to be the chair of the Health and Safety Committee. Woo! Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
Since we're on a roll.
I know.
I'll just nominate myself to be the chair of the Budget Committee, it sounds like, unless someone really wants to do that.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Any discussion, debate? I'll entertain that now. And if not, that seems like a vote we can also hold. Sarah, do you want to take the vote on?
Sure, roll call for nominating myself, Sarah Ma, to be the chair of the Budget Committee. Roll call vote, Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Serna Prada.
Yes.
Cresswell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yay.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Ma, yay. Martinsek.
Yay.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Menjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
13 out of 13. Okay, next one, if possible. Equity.
I would nominate myself to be on that committee, to chair that committee.
A second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect.
I would nominate Roberto.
And so do we do a little debate and do 2 votes? Sorry, not to know the procedure. Do you have a second for Rachel's nomination?
I'll second. Let's have some discussion. Why not?
Yes. And should I add an extra annoying wrench that we can have co-chairs if people want to share the work?
I think that's a great wrench. I love it. I mean, Avi, go ahead. Sorry.
Madam Chair, can I be acknowledged?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for the nomination. I really do want to truly want to be a part of the Equity Committee. As I mentioned, I have attended almost every single LSC meeting since 2019, since I've joined, my family and I have joined the Jones School community. And I've heard the students, and I've spoken to the students, and I've heard from the teachers. And I think this work is incredibly important. And I would love to be a part of it, whether that is chair or co-chair, and work alongside with Ms. Council Member Madam MacArthur on this initiative and on this work. And this is going to take commitment. And I am willing to put in the hours, put in the sweat, put in the tears, put in the blood to make this move, because that's what the students have demanded. They demanded it yesterday, they demanded it today, and they'll demand it, and they demand it for the future. So I am willing to work with all of our partners and all of the council members and our community representatives and outside the school. So I would really like to be a part of this in some influential capacity.
And I agree. I'm really not concerned with the title. I just want to be included in the work. So if you want to do it together, I'm all aboard for that.
So I'll make a motion to have Roberto and also Ms. MacArthur be the co-chairs of the Equity Committee.
I second. Bowman.
Beat you to it. Second.
Bowman second. Okay, let me get these names in here. Okay. Co-chairs. Okay. That sounds amazing. I love this. I'm going to do a little roll call as I get this in here. Roll call vote for the co-chairs of the hour. Bowman.
Yay.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Yes.
Serna Prada.
Yes.
Cresswell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hilbrands.
Yes.
Ma, yay. Martin Sek.
Yay.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Menjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Yay.
Zen.
Yay.
All right. Lucky 13. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing that work.
Yeah, thank you all for stepping up, and I'm super excited to have all of those things lined up. Okay, and that moves that item. Look at that, we don't have to table it. It is done. Good job, all. Okay, next on the agenda, I was going to actually have Jose step in and chair this part because it's a resolution that I worked on, and then I can give a little intro, and if there's questions or discussion, Jose could do that. So I'm going to hand over the chairing. Jose, if you'd like to do that.
Okay, just give me a second here. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the Black Lives Matter at Work Week discussion and vote. So I want to ask Ms. Cresswell to give us a brief on this.
Yeah, so I know it is sort of rushed to put this in, but this is a week that's part of a national movement that began several years ago in Seattle, really as just a day. And it was a day in Seattle Public